That's how it's gonna be, a little test tube.
It's most likely to be a highly infectious virus.
Guy steps out of Times Square station, smashes it on the sidewalk.
Welcome to the Zero Net Review, a show dedicated to handcrafted studies of genre fiction. I'm author DC McNeil, and I'm joined, as always, by Patrick Laverne, a mega fan who won't stop praising Paul at drinks. It's really annoying.
But I had a bit for the dude in the 20th century, but
the bit for the dude in the 20th century. Oh, Edwin. Yeah. Well, hang on. I could swap you guys. Hold on. I'll go again. I'm with DC McNeil. I'm joined as always by Darth, a mega fan who won't stop praising Paul at drinks. It's annoying.
What can I say? I like music that kind of hurts your ears while you're looking at video that kind of hurts your eyes.
You're sort of you're an evolved artistic type. And we're joined as always by Patrick, a socialite in Victoria who can't stop sucking up to the local businessmen.
I just wanted to tell the natives about the ills of imperialism, dog. You know, I hear you. I'm right there with you.
You and me both, brother. There's a really good moment in that where he realizes he's about to do it, and then he starts talking at dinner, and he's just like, "Oh no, I can't stop talking," and it's the most relatable thing ever.
Please tell me that was an intentional dad joke there. The ills of imperialism.
How? Oh, like diseases and stuff? No, I wasn't.
Oh,
because I was so proud of you for a second.
Only the twisted mind of Darth can get to a joke like that. Welcome back to our continued study of the post-apocalypse genre, brought to you by the Zero Indent Patreon. Subscribers help make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. This week we are reading through Sea of Tranquility by Emily St John Mandel from basically through to the end. So nope, that's not right. That's incorrect. I've written down here, this week we are reading through part 2 to the end of Glass Hotel. Inaccurate. This week we are reading Sea of Tranquility. And I haven't got the stopping point in front of me because I'm bad at my job today. We're reading through section 4, Bad Chickens, up to page 136. I picked a really annoying stopping point. It wasn't the end of a section like I thought it was, but it was the right point in the plot to stop. So I do apologize for misleading you both on where the stopping point is. But essentially, you read up to the point where Gasperry is offered to be put on on a screening interview for the Time Institute. That's where we're at up to. Talk to me about this book. Obviously, I was going to say more of a direct sequel, a direct something to Glass Hotel. I guess let's start with Pat. What did you think of the first part of this book?
First of all, for the edit, I apologize. I turned down the input just a bit because I also realized I was also coming in a bit hot. So I might be a bit quieter now. Okay, so suddenly a lot of things make sense about you foregrounding supernatural, more sci-fi stuff in the last two works. I was really sure that there was going to be nothing like this. I thought yet again it was going to be, the possible feelings of what might happen in the future were always going to be fantastical and sci-fi-ish. I never thought we'd actually get to the point where it would go straight into sci-fi. But yeah, it's interesting. It's as if you just read. It's as if the author just translated what they had been doing, which is a completely grounded non-sci-fi thing, into sci-fi all of a sudden, and it just has all the same sort of structures and hallmarks and themes and stuff, and the feelings of human experience in that book. But it's also quite interesting how she has to speculate a lot about what the future is going to be and how people will live and experience in settings in the future, and how they possibly are similar to the feelings we have today. It's it's a bold swing to take, like especially the time jumps she does. Yeah, and I really admire it. I think it's kind of so far I like the previous one better, but like I feel like this one is about to go into some crazy, insane, interesting direction, and I'm here.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a real like you built your career off writing these like really meditative like literary fiction type stories, and then you wake up on a Thursday and you're like, fuck it, what if it was all actually part of a big sci-fi trapping and like there's some, you know, like like because I read The Singer's Gun last week, and then I read the Lola Quartet this week, two of Mandel's other works, and they're just literary fiction. Like this is a real post Station 11. You know, Mandel has escaped containment from Canada, is getting published everywhere, and the audacity to be like, yeah, my third big book. This is pretty incredible, I think. Whether you like it or not, I think, like, yeah, as you say, it's a swing, and a lot of authors will go their entire careers without swings that look like this. So, yeah, it's interesting. So I'll explain why we stopped where we stopped toward the end, but yeah, shit's about to happen, is what I would say. Darth, what about you? Because this, I think, is. I can't tell. I think that at this point, this stopping point, I'm making a prediction. This stopping point is Darth's worst nightmare of the book. I think when you finish the book, you're going to think it's like the best thing ever. But I'm curious where it finds you right now, sort of at the 2/3 mark.
Okay, so Station 11 had me thinking it was sci-fi and then rug pulling, so it wasn't. Glass Hotel had me thinking it wasn't sci-fi and then rug pulling me so that it might be, but it might not be. We couldn't really tell.
Mm-hmm.
So I have not let myself assign any meaning to anything in this book until we finish it. So in my mind, there is no time travel yet. It could be a dream. It could be real. We don't know what's happening. And I will not dedicate my mind to anything until we get to the end because I don't trust Mandel.
You're in like you gaslit.
Yeah, cried wolf so much that when like insurmountable evidence is presented to you, you're like, nah, don't believe it.
Yeah. Mandel's like, here are 57 wolves, and you're like, I don't see any. I don't know what you're talking about.
Yeah.
Which is not to say that. Which is not to say that I haven't enjoyed it. I've actually on the drive to visit my brother, I read the first part on the way there, and then I reread 90% of it on the way back. So I've read the whole thing, this section twice because I very much did enjoy it, and I was very angry that I had to stop where I was because I wanted to finish the whole book. So it's very, very good. It's just that I'm not letting myself believe anything until we finish the book, and then I'll go back.
It would be crazy if there was no time travel in this book. Could you imagine? That would be.
Yeah,
we see Gasperry in the past.
Well, but no, it could just be a dude because people look the same. Like that's one of my favorite conspiracies is seeing people who like exist throughout time, and it looks like a clone of the same person, but they lived 300 years ago. You see them in old photographs or old hand drawings or paintings or whatever, and a lot of people use those as examples of time travel. But it's just like the human genome will recreate the same looking person every X people, So the fact that this one guy who looks like Gasperry is around in the past, I'm like, you could wave this off. You could actually explain this with real life science. So I don't believe you, Mandel. You are
okay. All right.
Well,
I don't believe you, Mandel. You are not. Nope.
There's a lot more going on than just he looks like the guy.
Darth's doing
the narration is like.
Darth's muted the X. He's not picking up the phone call. He's not responding to the request on Instagram. He's like, I'm going no contact with Emily St John Mandel. I'm not. Also, we should just say this: don't read while you're driving, kids. It's just bad form. Okay. Yeah, well, I think that's a really good segue into why we stopped where we stopped. So, we'll read the summary in a second, but I did just want to say two things, which is if you read the whole book, good for you. The reason I made these guys stop is I think that there is a productive conversation to be had here about it, kind of what Darth is talking about, which is how Mandel has taught you to read or not read her books, and then the way that this book exploits the way that she's taught you to read or not read her books. We stopped at this point because it's the final point in the book before you get confirmation whether time travel is real or not. So I want to have that conversation at the end around like the method of reading these books and how this podcast has made that a bit more complicated than maybe it should be. Because in some ways, I think Mandel's books are meant to be read in one sitting. And I think that's why it's a productive exercise to kind of try and explode them apart in the way that we've been doing, because the more times I read this book, the more times I think about what an adaptation of Glass Hotel and Sea of Tranquility would look like and could look like. And just the impossible notion of adapting these two stories in comparison to seemingly how simple Station 11 is, like, by contrast. Even though, Station 11. Even though Station 11 is quite a simple book, in general, it's complicated chronologically, and it's complicated to, like, put together and pull apart. Same with Glass Hotel. And then you add this, and it's like, I just don't know how you adapt these. So I'm glad for Somerville's career that never happened, because, yeah, I don't know what you do here. Yeah. All right. That being said,
I do think it's worth noting quickly that Station 11 also should be viewed. I mean, you said like read all or binged all at once, but it's more like it should be analyzed as a whole rather than analyzing it part by part, meaning episode by episode, or in this case maybe like chapter by chapter or book by book, because the end, like at the end of Station 11, the whole thing is recontextualized so much that now is the point where you want to go and analyze it, instead of saying like episode 4 was stupid because blah 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 blah. No, it tied into the whole thing. And so looking at the, like, some of the stuff that I was like, oh, this was an error in the last book, this book is like, we're gonna explain that, you know.
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was trying to say. Yeah, it's yeah, in summation, and like, again, I don't want to present this as like the classic like Gene Wolfe style, you know, solved text, like the clockwork text myth of like that this single author produced this like completely unified work across. It's like, no, like Mandel is like a person in time and space, and she wrote Glass Hotel, and maybe she had an idea about Sea of Tranquility and how it would all fit together. But like she said before, like people, you know, in interviews, people say, oh, like, why do you keep including these characters that mix across these novels? And she's, you know, her answer is simple. She's like, I like certain characters and I want to do more with them. And so it's fun to put them in these other books. And you know, there are characters in the first 3 novels. Like there are characters in The Singer's Gun that appear in Glass Hotel. And there's characters in the Lola Quartet that appear in Sea of Tranquility. But it's not like some great unified, you know, corpus of one narrative. It's these 3 books certainly are closer to that. But I do think it's just worth kind of acknowledging that this book does try to solve some stuff from Glass Hotel in what I think are like really interesting and productive ways, but I don't want to miscommunicate the idea, if you're not reading these books, that this makes Glass Hotel flawless. I've read both of these books maybe like 10 or 15 times. I still don't know what Glass Hotel is trying to do. Like, just honestly. So I just want to provide that disclaimer up top, because sometimes the way people talk about this book is the way they talk about Gene Wolfe's Book of the New Sun as this like complete key that you put into the lock and you turn it and it solves all of the other books, and I just don't think that's true. That's my disclaimer.
But put a pin in that statement, because that is literally in this book where there's a character that's like, what is this book what is this about? I don't understand how it ends. Nothing ties together. And I'm like, she's talking about herself.
Yeah,
I think
it's so good. Some of these conversations, and I'm sure we'll get there, are just ripped clearly from her experiences doing book tours, and like her experiences with taxi drivers and stuff that are so uncomfortable. And I was like, this must have really happened.
you smell nice.
Oh,
Was that one of them?
I nearly cringed out of my skin. I was like, okay, well, without further ado, Patrick, when you are ready, Can we please hear the rather unprotracted summary of Sea of Tranquility 2022 by Emily St John Mandel, Part 1. This is through Into Bad Chickens up to page 136 in the EPUB at the end of section 6 of Bad Chickens. So very specific stopping point, but yeah. Do you have the page number in the print? Have you got the hardback, Darth? I didn't realize they made a hardback. Damn. All right.
This was actually the first book I have checked out from a local library in probably 2 decades.
Libraries are great. Get a library card and go to your local library.
I had several existential crises specifically related to checking out a book because it took me back to my childhood. And then the second was like communism thing where I was like, this piece of knowledge is shared among my community. And I am another one in the chain of people who have consumed this knowledge. And
Yeah,
it was weird.
Standing in a library having a revelation about Karl Marx is the most zero-in thing you could ever do.
I want a Emily St John Mandel style narrative of the journey of that book. That's what I want.
Yeah, following the object.
Whose lives has it touched? Yeah.
Well, in the that for sure in the Patrick Somerville adaptation of this, there's just an entire episode that's dedicated to a single copy of Marion Bad changing hands, and you just follow the novel as it moves from one place to... So it used to be a real Vince Gilligan style episode, you know what I mean? Just a bunch of strangers. Yeah. It's good stuff. All right, Patrick, when you're ready, the summary. It's really long, I apologize.
In 1912, Edwin St John St Andrew is exiled from England due to his secretly radical views which emerged unexpectedly at a dinner party. Edwin thinks that the English conquering India might be a bad thing, actually. He finds lodging in Halifax, where he stays at a tavern without any real plan. He envies everyone and anyone who has a semblance of a functioning life. Reginald arrives, a fellow exile. With plans to light out to a farm in the west, Edwin joins him. After a month of drinking on the farm, Edwin heads to British Columbia to meet his brother's friend, Thomas. Thomas and Edwin head north together to the settlement of Caiette. While walking on the beach, Edwin has a queer encounter with the priest, Roberts, before stepping through time and space briefly, before returning to the sand. Roberts goes to speak with the priest, who is slightly off, and then the priest disappears. In 2020, Mirella attends a performance by Paul, featuring a particular video clip from Vincent as a child, where she walks along the beach in Caiette, with a mysterious glitch that lines up to, roughly, the same place that Edwin experienced his glitch in 1912. As Mirella waits by the stage door to meet Paul, a man named Gasperry Roberts is also waiting. She, Roberts, and another random guy have drinks. Mirella leaves in tears, only to speak with Roberts, who she recognizes from his arrest during her childhood. Roberts has no idea what she's talking about. In 2203, Olive Llewellyn, definitely not an author insert, continues her book tour, the last book tour on Earth, promoting Marion Bad, a book about an aggressive pandemic that causes the end of the world. Meanwhile, rumors of a pandemic in Australia stir. Australia mentioned?
I've never heard you say Australia before, and I'm not sure about that, Pat.
How did I say it?
You said it like a Queenslander. Now I can't. Now I'm not going to be able to do it.
I am a Queenslander.
Yeah, that's. But it only comes. It's very rare.
Did I say it more bogan than you were expecting?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah. Well, yeah. Actually, you say it like Australia.
Yeah, that's how you're supposed to say it, isn't it?
Australia.
Yeah, I realize that I've got a bit more British and Scot in me than we'd all prefer, but it does just caught me off guard. I apologize.
Australia. What was I up to? Nice. Olive is interviewed by Gasperry Roberts, who asks if Olive experienced something strange in the Oklahoma City airship terminal. In 2401, Gasperry Roberts reflects on his failed life on Moon Colony 2. A stilted childhood of petty theft and an unremarkable series of jobs land him working at the Grand Luna Hotel in Colony 1. Gasperry's sister Zoe is a theoretical physicist working at the Time Institute. On the night of her 37th birthday, Zoe calls Gasperry to her office. Zoe explains that an anomaly in a film in Paul Smith's musical performance is mirrored in a scene from Olive Llewellyn's novel Marienbad, which is mirrored by Edwin's experience in the 1912s. Gasperry volunteers to time travel to investigate each anomaly, but Zoe says no. Gasperry runs into his friend Ephraim and talks his way into being an investigator. 2 years of training and he might be ready to travel. Despite Zoe's protests, Ephraim books a screening interview. Gasperry is on his way to working at the Time Institute.
Now, if Glass Hotel was a novel without a lot of plot going on most of the time, this book is like all plot from like the jump. It's just there's a bunch of stuff happening and it happens really quickly. And I'm curious at a prosaic level. She does a thing here that I think is not necessarily new for her, but I think is like definitely like cranked up to 11, which is this kind of hyper. I'm not sure the word you use for it, but structurally, it's like a she does these like hyper montages throughout the book where a section will be 4 or 5 sentences, and then you skip 4 or 5 sentences, then a skip, and it's just like a really I think it's like a profoundly accelerated version of what she was doing previously, where there's a particular page where I noticed it really, really clearly. I think this is page 14 in the EPUB. I'll put it up on screen, but it's literally beats where it's like 1 paragraph break, 2 paragraph break, 3 and the third one is like 1 sentence, and then it's 4, and then it's break. Like it's just this real staccato way that the story moves through the initial sort of pieces of characterization. And it's like this willingness to be more segmented and fractionalized in a way that maybe Glass Hotel is at the very end of the book, but definitely isn't throughout. I'm curious like how that works for you guys, because I've seen some, let's say, I wouldn't say criticism, but I've seen it noted that this is like a real logical conclusion of, I guess, the structural stuff that Mandel was doing in Glass Hotel, particularly with the actual prose itself.
I like it because that it's just like each cut in the montage is some sort of beat, and usually like the one that sticks out is Olive Llewellyn on the book tour, and a lot of these beats are other people talking, and you don't even get, it doesn't describe her reaction to it or anything, but it's you understand that it's a beat because it's something significant or like disruptive to the character. So it's stuff like the creepy taxi driver, or like a tactless fan asking her a random question, and it somehow gives you like a pretty good like understanding of like the character, like what how she feels about stuff. And then also, it's really efficient for storytelling. Just moves you along, gives you a sense of time and progress and development, and also helps with the feelings of human experience about having gone through like a sort of extended period of time with a character, and you sort of know like where their head is at and stuff. Yeah, it all works for me.
Yeah, it's like the most aggressive form of like pure subjectivity, where it's like you're only getting beats that this character would actually notice and remember. And so like with Olive in particular, exactly. It's the bad stuff. And it's like these fleeting moments of like, there's like 1 or 2 good things on this tour, and then it's a bunch of like other noise and bad stuff. And yeah, I know what I know what you've sort of you're getting at there. And I think it works particularly well with Olive as opposed to maybe Edwin, where I think the first time I read this, I was definitely like, this Edwin section's still going. What is this here for? Yeah, Duff, what about you?
Okay, so the only part of the like structural part that I noticed or that really jumped out was the beginning section in the with the Edwin stuff, and it's the jump between sub chapter 7 and 8, and it goes from 7. He steps forward, dash, chapter 8, end dash, into a flash of darkness, and so chapter 8 is now the like flashback timey-wimey stuff. And chapter 7 ended with Edwin in the past. Chapter 8 is him seeing into the future, and then skip to chapter 9 and he's back in the past. And like I understand the break, but it, like, reading it, I was like, why did it's the same sentence? Why was the same sentence split into a different chapter? And I got stuck there for a little bit trying to figure out why in the world is this sentence split into a chapter, because I don't know if I've ever seen that before, and it hit me as being so odd. And like now I understand it, but then I'm also thinking, like, did that really add anything to have it structured that way? Unless it's just like her, style, and that's what she wanted to do, and whatever.
Well, I think the point is maybe to draw your attention to how weird it is. Like,
That could be, yeah.
Yeah, like that. This is when I was talking about before, like the idea of like this book teaching you how to read it, like the conveyance of that structural moment, making you go, wait a second, why is this a new chapter? And if you then reflect and go, well, each other chapter break there's been some change in time in some way, usually moving forward if we're following a character linearly. I think it's trying to communicate something about that there's a change in time and perspective. Like, I think it's trying to call your attention to it and make you go, yeah, hang on, that's weird. Like, why are the other breaks in little chapter sections here? Oh, it's because time changes, or maybe time changed here, or something.
But if you think that's disruptive, imagine being one of the characters being warped 100 years into the future. That's got to be pretty disruptive.
I actually think I deal with it really well, and I'd be very chill about it. I just think my superior intellect would mean that I'd land in the future and I'd be like, oh, I know exactly what this is. Like,
yeah, adapt it. Yeah. You land in a bar in 2203 and you go, beer please.
Beer please. Pour me a pint, good sir. And he goes, that'll be 15 gribbles.
And then he goes, beer was outlawed in 2107. You're like, ah.
Actually, yeah, it's illegal because it was the neo-Nazis really love beer. Oh my god, no. They co-opted my thing. Okay, well, I guess let's start with Edwin then. So Edwin is this, like, I don't want to be unkind to Edwin, but he's a bit of a loser. Okay. I'm sorry. Wow. I'm sorry. He is just a little bit.
I related to Edwin a lot, actually, so,
I don't want to be unkind to Pat. He's a bit of a loser. No, he's the most
he's
relatable. He's
a drifter.
Guy.
He's aimless.
He is. I love I've got this on 13. He wakes that first morning to a wonderfully lively scene outside his window. A large merchant ship has arrived, and he's close enough to hear the jovial curses of the men unloading barrels and sacks and crates. He spends much of that first day gazing out the window like a cat. He planned to go west immediately, but it's so easy to linger in Halifax, where he falls prey to a personal weakness he's been aware of all of his life. Edwin is capable of action, but prone to inertia. He likes sitting by his window. There's a constant movement of people and ships. He doesn't want to leave, so he stays. And, listen, I'm not saying that Mandel has met a certain type of guy before, but this is... The characterization of Edwin is so non-judgmental, right? Like, it's not going, look at this lazy motherfucker. It's going like, this is just, like, it's the... Like, the bit in particular that stuck out to me is so relatable is it's so easy to linger in Halifax, where he falls prey to a personal weakness he's been aware of his whole... He knows this is, like, a thing that he... Like, a tendency he has. But it's just... It's like gravity. It's nature. Like, he can't change that part of himself. And really what we follow is him moving through a series of spaces and, like, that inertia stopping him from moving on. You know, he ends up in Halifax, then he ends up in the farm, then he ends up in Victoria, and then finally he ends up in Caiette, where something actually happens to him. I don't know. There's a radical sort of, I mean, Mandel loves writing dudes like this, you know. The Singer's Gun is like a book about a guy who is a bit of a loser. He's kind of down on his luck. He had to do crime his entire childhood to like get by, and then you join him as an adult, and like he's having an affair while he's engaged, and the only thing that he really cares about in his entire life is his cat. And I just think that like Mandel loves writing a guy like this, just like a guy who has found themselves in unpleasant or undesirable circumstances just because a time happened. Yeah, I really like Edwin, even if he's a bit of a loser.
In defense of Patrick, this character, I don't think this
Go on.
character should be classified as a loser. Because
Just a bit of a loser, just a bit.
Okay, bear with me. You're gonna hate the second part of my sentence even more, because I think that mindset is stemming very much from a capitalism mindset. Because he has all of his needs met. He's getting, he's getting the money from his family. He doesn't ever need to work. He is just searching for whatever happiness that life has to offer. He's very well educated. He can go and learn painting and drawing and take up whatever hobbies that he wants to do, and he could pursue whatever life that he wants to do. But the book and the characters that he meets in the book, and even you yourself, are painting it as the fact that he's not like meaningfully contributing to society, or he's not pushing himself to do XYZ, makes him a quote unquote loser. Like, I was just listening, the timing is just completely random here, but I was listening to a comedian earlier, and he was talking about this desire you hear people always say about leaving your mark on the world. You want to do something so great that people will remember it. And he's like, but why? Why do we want to do that? Why do we want like this greatness? And the book talks about this, about like there's a line in there, like, didn't we come out here to go into the forest and leave our mark? And like, I think Edwin is supposed to be like the opposite point of view. Like, you don't have to leave your mark. You just have to find your spot to curl up like a cat and be happy. And he can be like that anywhere, and everyone's trying to like make him feel bad about it. But he's the happiest character because he can be happy anywhere, right? So we all need to be the Patrick, right? We'd all be so much happier.
Yeah, so what you're saying is
You'll need to be chill like me.
Yeah, you're saying that he's Winnie the fucking Pooh, okay, which is something I've accused Patrick of doing before, all right? Yes, he has a remarkable knack for things just working out, seemingly without him really trying. I guess what I'm trying to say is that I agree with you, okay? I think that the myth... Well, you said a Marxist thing. Of course I'm going to agree with you. The myth of like productivity as a measure of like one's success, and productivity specifically being one's ability to produce excess under capital, is obviously a dumb lie that we should all stop thinking and believing in. And like this, you get that from like the rise and grind culture. That's all of your LinkedIn influencer bullshit. It's all of your self-help books. It's all of a piece with that same notion, which is that like nominally you should be min-maxing every aspect of your life to make the most amount of profit, to eat the best food, to have the most attractive spouse, to have the most attractive body, to live the longest, because that's what should be desirable. And it's a self-completing loop that goes nowhere because you're going to die anyway. But I think where the book is trying to think about this more critically is the contrast of Edwin with a character like Olive, I think, and the contrast of a character like Edwin with perhaps Gasperry, where, Olive is a character struggling to, we'll talk about her in some detail, but, she's putting food on the table for her family, and in doing so, kind of irreparably, or seemingly irreparably damaging her relationship to her family, or that's how she thinks of it anyway. By comparison to Edwin, who does the irreparable damage, which is what ejects him from, his life and into this new world where he has to go and seek out some kind of meaning or some place to curl up like a cat, as you say. And then I think, you get Gasperry, who I think is he's the other end of the spectrum, where his life never really started to begin with. And so he just finds himself like perpetually trying to find meaning in a life that he's sort of fallen into. And so I wonder if, I wonder if when I say that Edwin's a bit of a loser, what I mean is that he thinks of himself that way a little bit. Like, he knows, so what you're saying, Darth, like, he knows that he should have ambition and he should want to go west to a farm and he should want to colonize the forests of Caiette and he should want to do all these things. And he just doesn't. Like, the homie just wants to learn how to paint and, like, drink a whiskey. You can't fault anyone for that. But I like the way that the book is sort of thinking through the way that he is internalized and pushing against some of that imperialism that obviously his parents are completely bought into. But it's almost impossible to fully push back, and so there are just these glimpses where he's judging himself against those standards because that's just how he's been socialized, right?
Yeah, there's some interesting like parallels with between Edwin and Gasperry about how that motivation through like institutional devotion, because as you say, like a big dimension of Edwin's disposition is against the British Empire, right? Like the thing about like going out and leaving your mark on the world, like that is inherently like sort of imperialistic. If you're a British citizen at that time, that's what every citizen is expected to do, to sort of go out, expand your influence across all the world, kind of thing. And yeah, it's interesting. Like Edwin has trouble squaring that and committing to that because he's aware that like there's a lot of evils associated with that, and like India, for example. Whereas like Gasperry is like he wants to be a part of something bigger and something important, which is like the Time Institute. Which I mean means it's unclear what sort of ethical like position the Time Institute has, but I guess it's just something to like, it's something big and important, basically.
I also just realized I don't know if they're supposed to be tying in the question about the ethics of colonization with the fact that the later chapters are dealing with humanity colonizing the stars, and it never indicates whether there's existing life or whatever. But the fact that colonization is in there from an old America and then a future America, perspective, makes me think that she is trying to draw a parallel there, and maybe it'll address it later in the book, but we'll see.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Well, you get Moon Colony too, which they just kind of let go to shit because it's not the nice one. Like, there's somehow even gentrification in space colonies. Like, I don't know, the critique of capital is real.
Well, yeah, but it also hit that it might be a callback there to like the Edwin era, because like it says everyone in this room was a second son. Something because all of the second sons went over to try to find meaning in America. So right. the second the second city on the moon.
Yeah, no, I think that's.
I like that.
Yeah, that's quite neat. I like that. Yeah, I mean, Edwin is just happy to like do whatever. There's this great section I have on 14 where he goes, this is just his day. This is a day in the life of Edwin while he's in Halifax. He takes walks in the mornings and again in the afternoons, down to the harbour, out to quiet residential areas, in and out of little shops under the striped awnings on Barrington Street. He likes to ride the electric streetcar to the end of the line, and then come back, watching the shift from small houses to larger houses to the commercial buildings downtown. He likes buying things that he doesn't especially need. A loaf of bread, a postcard or two, a bouquet of flowers. This could be a life, he finds himself thinking. It could be as simple as this. No family, no job, just a few simple pleasures and clean sheets to fall into at the end of the day. A regular allowance from home. A life of solitude could be a very pleasant thing. He's just a guy. He just wants to eat good food, go for a walk, smoke weed, chill out. What's so bad about that? My man. But I do think there's some underlying truth though of I think it's when he's I think he's mixing it up with Reginald and they sort of they're having drinks or whatever. Or maybe it's breakfast the next day. And Reginald is kind of being like, hey, you've been here for 6 months, dude? Like, and everyone's like, yeah, so I'm really good 6 months. And Reginald goes, I don't suppose we're hoping to be called home, are we? Clinging to the edge of the Atlantic, staying as close as we can to king and country. And I've written over the top of this sentence in my EPUB, ouch. Because it really does feel like Reginald immediately sees through this kind of happy-go-lucky. And, like, I'm not saying that the happy-go-lucky thing is a facade, but I think there is an element of truth to this where, Reginald is the one that kind of pushes him to actually, like, accept that and accept and face what happened. And so it's no coincidence that in the next section, you get Edwin reflecting on that terrible dinner party conversation and sort of reliving it as prompted by Reginald's little jab.
Is Reginald the one who ends up at the farm?
Yeah, so Reginald is the one that ends up at the farm, and then he meets up with Thomas in Victoria, I think. Yeah. Yeah,
well, it's equally interesting how the note we leave Reginald on, which is that he's in charge of this farm that has, 100 acres of mud or something like, he's like, oh, what are you doing? You got to you get moving, make progress and stuff like this. And then we get to his farm and, they just spend their time drinking or whatever. And, it's very unglamorous and like too much reality.
Yeah. He like can't deal with how big the country is.
Mm.
Yeah. It's very good. Yeah. And the fact that he's there for a month, he does nothing. It's so good.
It was interesting that they, the imagery kept drawing parallels between his description of disliking the ocean and how flat and you couldn't see the sky from the ocean, and the same thing with being out in that country, where you just saw the mud and the skyline, and that's all there was, and then contrasting that with when they get up into the mountains and he thinks it's like the most beautiful thing ever, and that's where he decides to stay. And then I also wanted to point out that both this and Glass Hotel start in the ocean. Maybe a deeper meaning, or maybe Mandel just really likes water. So,
I mean, it's called Sea of Tranquility. One has to imagine that water is central. Yes.
It took me way too long to clock. Oh, that's the moon.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, it's not an actual sea, is it?
No, but it's names. It's not. But it could it's shaped like where it's sea. Yeah. No, it's the one thing that I am curious about is if this. So they go to it. Yeah. So he goes to the farm. He drinks for a month, and then he ends up going with Thomas to Victoria, who he judges so severely. Edwin really doesn't like Thomas in a way that is like difficult to explain because they seem like they're pals, but I think he sees in Thomas kind of what Darth was talking about before, like the emergence of the preeminent sort of imperialist, and I think Edwin thinks it's kind of embarrassing to watch because like Thomas is trying to suck up to the the local sort of as Darth was saying, like the second sons, like the established kind of lordlings and the established descendants that are already set up within Victoria. And Edwin thinks of this as just like fundamentally at a value judgment level, like a bad thing, like an embarrassing thing to do. And yeah, it really solidifies the kind of view that Edwin has of England and imperialism, to the point where, he even thinks about like, how long is Thomas going to have to like suck up to these guys to get into their inner circle? Like he basically thinks of it as like forever. And so I like that. I like that Edwin sees the kind of sliding doors version of himself who arrived in America and decided like, I'm going to try and join the people that want to recreate Britain here. He kind of wholly rejects that, and keeps moving on. And obviously does go with Thomas to the north, but yeah, I just thought that was an interesting decision because I think a different writer would have Edwin be maybe jealous or covetous of Thomas's willingness to keep trying to rebuild his old life, if that makes sense. Like a kind of like you could imagine this prompting an existential ennui in Edwin of like, oh, maybe this is what I should have been doing the whole time. But instead he immediately recognizes it for what it is, you know.
Well, yeah, I think that speaks to like what do you call it, like a moral fortitude in Edwin. Like he is one of those people, like, you know, early in the 20th century that were, you know, one of many people that were, you know, very critical of empire and imperialism in general at a time when we generally think that like, oh, you know, that was totally the norm and everyone was on board, which, you know, is true to some extent. But like the reason why stuff like that eventually ended is because there was, you know, a big movement and a lot of people who were very critical of the empire and understood exactly why. And, you know, like, I think Edwin is sort of like tiptoeing between these worlds because, you know, he does come from like an aristo background, it seems. And he doesn't, you know, he gets a stipend or an allowance or whatever. So he benefits from that world, but he's also critical of it. And then, and I think the reason why he's not covetous or jealous is because in his journey through Canada, he sort of, you know, he self-actualizes a little bit, and, you know, he has some more realizations about like how the world should be and stuff like that. That's how I interpret it.
Yeah, I agree with that.
I was wondering if his the impression that he has of Thomas, if that is supposed to be indicative of like a larger thing that Mandela is doing, because there's a lot of characters in these books that seem to embrace the theme of quote unquote just good enough, where they either are with a person who is good enough to you know, to make them happy, or they're in a situation or a job that is good enough, and so they're not really seeking out true happiness or a true relationship or a, you know, a true profession that appeals to them. They're just sticking with what's good enough, and that kind of feels like what Thomas is. It's like it's not a friend that really appeals to him, but it's good enough for his current situation.
Mm-hmm. Well, yeah, and then by contrast, you have like, well, I mean, Gasper's the same, where he's in this life that is just good enough, and then Oliver's the contrast, where she's the one that is willing to push herself and go beyond her limits, and it turns out that like in doing that and in not settling for good enough, there's a cost associated with that. And yeah, Edwin's willing to bear that cost insofar as he is, you know, impacted by that cost, given, you know, he has universal basic income effectively from his parents. You know, he's got a little more latitude than other characters. But yeah, I think that's exactly right, Darth. It is these characters who've settled for something that's just good enough. Yeah, the next thing that I think is sort of related to this is the we go back to Caiette, that Mandel imagines. And I love when authors do this. This is a place that we'd been to multiple times in Glass Hotel. And here we get it 100 years prior. This is before any of the colonization, but it's actually not that unchanged. It's still basically one street and a church. Yeah, I'm curious what you guys made of revisiting this same location through this different kind of context, or through, you know, indeed Edwin's, you know, unique perspective. Yeah, what did you guys make of Mandel reusing this place?
I don't know. I also noted that it was like similar, you know, building wise, one street, a couple buildings, a, you know, whatever, a church or a parish up the hill or something. It's like, oh yeah, it's pretty much like how Vincent described it in Glass Hotel. Yeah, I don't know. I was excited. I like things set in the past, as you know, and so it's cool to see it like in a historical setting. I'm like, oh,
Yeah, they hadn't eradicated all the locals yet.
I think that's one of those things that would have been that is much more powerful as a visual as visual storytelling, because you could see the the structure of the mountains from then versus 100, from now versus 100 years ago, and then you could, but with the text, you just have like, oh, there was a church, oh, there was a road, and like in my mind, the road from 100 years ago might not even run the same direction the road now is running, you know. So to me, it was very alien. Like it had the same name, and logically, I'm like, yeah, it's the same town, but also it isn't, because so much development can happen to substantially change the flow of stuff that without having that really good visual representation, it didn't really click for me as much that it's a, the true time travel comparison that they were going for here. Um, so, but I'm very visual, and we know this, so I've got a handicap here.
Well, I also do think that it is trying to deliberately do that thing of like, is this the same version of Caiette that we know? Like, this book is really insistent on not committing to whether time travel is happening right up until it does. So I also think that part of that is deliberate, where you could imagine a version of this where the description of Caiette is, very deliberately calling on the previous description, in a way that it kind of doesn't. Like it's very thin in its actual description. This is like basically the entirety of the description that you get. They reach the settlement of Caiette in the early evening. There isn't much to it. A pier, a small white church, 7 or 8 houses, a rudimentary road that leads up to the cannery, and the logging camp. Edwin stands by the pier with his steamer trunk beside him, at a loss. This place is precarious, that's the only word for it. It's the lightest sketch of civilizations, caught between the forest and the sea. He doesn't belong here. And then he goes on to say, Edwin is astonished by the beauty of this place. He likes to sit on the beach and just gaze out at the islands, little tufts of trees rising out of the water. Canoes pass by sometimes on unknowable errands, and the men and the women in the boats sometimes ignore him and sometimes stare. Larger boats come in at regular intervals, bringing men and supplies for the cannery and the camp. Some of them know how to play chess, which is one of Edwin's great pleasures. He's never been very good at chess, but he enjoys the sense of order in the game. And so, like, that's about the extent of the description you get. They don't linger too much on, I guess, trying to paint a parallel version of Caiette, or deliberately make it feel different or make it feel similar. It's thin enough that I think you could maybe read this and be not 100% sure if it's, a different version of reality, or if it is time travel, or what's actually happening. Yeah, so I think that you're not wrong to be like, I didn't really mark it. I just thought it was like the same place. Yeah, but very cool. I'm sure we will have more to say about that at the end of this book, as a location, particularly in regards to Vincent and her relationship with Caiette. I think is a thing to keep in the back of your head as we look toward the next section when we get there.
I will say, as far as the pictures via text, the descriptions of the woods, especially when Edwin veers off into the trees, and right before he has his little time travel moment, and it describes the trees as being like a gateway to the forest, or sentinels to the forest. I can't remember what the phrasing was, but the entire description of the forest itself, like that hit me hard, and I was like, oh, I'm back out and I'm camping in the woods right now, and I could smell the pine. I love it.
Yeah, I think Gates of the Forest is the phrase.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which also, like, I think that might have been it. Whatever the language, the idea is something that I've thought a lot. And I will arbitrarily, maybe a lot of people do this who spend any time out in the woods, but I'll arbitrarily like pick trees that are standing like they look like a door, and I'm like, that's the entryway, or that's the pathway, or whatever, and I'm like, I got to go through there because it looks like something you should go through. So that idea that she was calling it like a gateway to the woods, and I'm like, I've lived that. So that was really interesting.
Well, the reason it looks like a gateway is because it's been trodden through by Bigfoots previously. You see, Darth. So.
Yeah, and the werewolves, of course. Obviously. Yeah, I had this on 35 in the EPUB. The gates of the forest. The phrase comes immediately to mind, but Edwin's not sure where he picked it up. It sounds like something from a book he might have read as a boy. The trees here are old and enormous. It's like stepping into a cathedral, except the underbrush is so thick that he has to fight his way through. He stops a few paces in. He sees a maple tree just ahead, large enough that it's created its own clearing, and that seems like a pleasant destination. He'll walk to the maple tree, he decides. He'll step out of the underbrush and linger a moment, then he'll go back to the beach immediately and never enter the forest again. This is an adventure, he tells himself, but it doesn't feel like an adventure. Mostly it feels like being slapped in the face with salal branches. Yeah, it's really delightful. And this is where he bumps into the priest, who... Now listen, I don't want to be rude to Gasperry, but he might be the worst actor in any Emily St John Mandel book ever. He's so... From immediately, the vibes are off.
The acting was fine. It was just his improv.
Yeah,
his improv
exactly.
needed... He wasn't prepared.
Which, knowing that he's had 2 years of training, it's so funny to look at this scene through the context of knowing he had 2 years of training and just be like, this was the best you could do?
I don't know. Because, I mean, at this point, we don't know that he's been accepted. We don't know that he's had any training. And the fact that he doesn't know anything makes me think that he's not prepared for this, which makes me think that he's traveling through time illegally. If, in fact, this is actually him and he's actually traveling through time.
Mm-hmm.
Remind me how that interaction goes again. Like, I can't remember.
It basically... So, Roberts is walking on the beach, and then there's this priest who's like, I didn't mean to, like, startle you. I just like walking here. And he's kind of weird.
Yeah.
And immediately, Edwin is like, I don't know, his accent's a bit off. And then the priest just sort of disappears. And then he's like, oh, I'll just go back to the church. And Edwin goes, you're not the usual priest. And then the priest says, I'm Roberts, filling in for Father Pike. Then he goes away. And this is when Edwin steps forward. He has his little moment of, like Darth was describing, the scene break, where it goes from, this is the end of the previous section. He steps forward, M-, and then 8, M-, into a flash of darkness, like a sudden blindness or an eclipse. He has an impression of being in some vast interior, something like a train station or a cathedral. There are notes of violin music, and there are other people around him, and then an incomprehensible sound, and then you get the M-, and then he's back. And then after he has his freak out on the beach, he goes to the church, and that's when they have their proper, like, conversation that's really awkward and weird, and the priest starts asking him about, like, what happened, and yeah, Edwin's immediately like, this guy's weird, and then the actual priest turns up, and you know, the Gasperry's gone type thing.
It seems kind of irresponsible to interact with Edwin before he has the thing. Like, yeah. If you know that that's the event you're there for, like, maybe he wasn't trying to get spotted though. Maybe he just, like, because he you know, is fucking up a lot. He stepped on a twig. He's like, fuck.
Shit. You know, changes who the 25th president is or whatever because he's stepped on a twig. You know.
Yeah.
I would have thought that the idea was to actually witness it, or better, to experience it himself, because I'm pretty sure that he was actually, meaning Gasperry was actually out there around the maple tree and couldn't figure out where to look, and Edwin gets there and Gasperry is somewhere around there. And Gasperry is like, okay, so I just have to walk away, let him have the experience, and then ask him about it, because I can't figure out where the thing is. So he walks away a pace, and then later he tells Edwin, I looked back, and I saw you looking up in the tree, and it's like you saw something I couldn't see. And then later on, the stuff that's weird is him saying that he was filling in for the regular priest, and Edwin was like, but we didn't hear a boat come in, and no one is gossiping about this, which everyone gossips, and he lists out, like, all of these, like, Sherlock deductions for how this wouldn't be the priest. And now thinking about later, like all of this stuff, all of this information would have been prepared by the time cops, you know? So now I'm like, oh, what's going on here if this is actually time travel?
Compelling points, but also Edwin is a very suspicious person. I'm now realizing. These would not go through my head.
No, I've written in my marginalia on that page. I've written down, Roberts owned by facts and logic by Edwin. It's got real Twitter guy energy of like, well, if you take all the if no one's allowed to make money and you give all that, no one, it's like, shut up. But yeah, he is naturally suspicious. But I did also think this was the most Darth reaction to this situation ever. To be like, well, hang on, but if you're the priest that's filling in, we would have heard a boat coming in, and there would have been a boat going, and it's like it very much. It feels like the type of thing where if it was anyone else he's talking to, he gets away with this, but because it's Edwin. And Edwin has that empty head that he's just waiting to be filled with a task, I think it's really fun. Yeah. And then there's a really good moment where he asks the priest where he's from, and Roberts is like far away, very, very far away. And I love how annoyed Edwin is by this, because he goes, well, that's all of us, isn't it? Edwin says a little irritably. He's like, yeah, no shit. We're all from, we're in the middle of the fucking wilderness in Canada. We're all from somewhere far away. Like, what are you talking about? I really like Edwin in this scene. His natural suspicion is delightful to me.
Yeah, now is not the time to give non-answers, priest.
Yeah. Speak plainly, man of the cloth. Like, it's that type of energy.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it.
Which is kind of odd when you look back at all of Edwin's other stuff, because he doesn't come off as this kind of suspicious person. And it kind of had me wondering if this was supposed to be the rich people are trained to think someone might be coming after your money to swindle you, so these are the things to look out for. And we haven't seen that pop up until now. Otherwise, otherwise he's acting totally different than he has. He doesn't have the chill vibe anymore. So what changed?
Yeah. True. Maybe he has a prejudice against the lower classes.
That would be very, very, very complicated.
Because you're right, he doesn't show any suspicion toward the other landowners and stuff like that. The other business owners. Yeah.
That's true. I mean, he doesn't. I mean, he immediately takes umbrage with Thomas as a person, but I think that's more because of the aesthetics of trying to suck up to these guys. Yeah. Interesting.
Well, he had already known him for years, though, and I think it said something like he had never really liked him to some degree.
I think so. Well, yeah, and I think it's that was his brother's friend, and his brother has terrible taste in friends. That was the kind of vibe.
Yeah, but it was the best he had available, so he went with it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this book is hey, don't settle. It's really the takeaway. Yeah, I guess we can probably leave Roberts and Edwin in Caiette instead of go to 2020, unless you guys have anything else on them.
My next note is literally the date.
Yeah. So, are we in direct sequel territory? Maybe.
Yeah.
Well, maybe not.
Maybe not sequel though.
Because
what's a book called when you're supposed to read it simultaneously?
And also some stuff is different. So in this version of reality, Jonathan Al-Qaeda went to Dubai. Yeah. And there's just a couple details that are wrong.
We don't know that though. Because the way that it came off,
here we go.
It was almost like her. It was almost like Mirella's. Okay, so that whole bit was about Mirella thinking maybe my friend Vincent wasn't betraying me, so she's questioning reality. Which also, her thinking that Al-Qaeda is living in Dubai is not necessarily reality. It's just what she thinks happened, right? If she never tried to track down Vincent, did she ever try to track down Al-Qaeda, and would she know that he's actually in prison? Blah 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 blah. So I took, especially with Dubai is where he would have gone in his other imagination. That's where he ended up, right?
Mhm.
That's where he would have escaped to. So the fact that she thinks he went there, to me, was Mirella just running the same imaginary ending, where that's where he would have ended up if things had gone his way, but it didn't, and she didn't know he was in jail. That's how I took it. Now, if we're in some kind of alternate universe thing, I feel like it's going to make me angry, but we'll get there if we get there.
I understand what you're saying, and you're obviously doing your best to cope with this book, which I appreciate. The his imprisonment was like front page headlines, top of the hour on the news headlines. Like in the previous book, when he goes to prison, everyone knows about it. That's all I'll say. I'm not gonna like dissuade you one way or the other, but it is. I think we're supposed to be not sure. To your point, like you're supposed to be like, wait a minute, is this the same or is this different? Like what? Yeah. So like I don't want to like tip my hand in either direction, but yeah, I think that's the point of it, is for you to go, wait, is this the same? Because it seems like from Morella's perspective, it certainly is. Like everything that she's going through is consistent with our version of reality in Glass Hotel.
Well, it's Glass Hotel already did this. It already presented a ever so slightly different version of reality. So I feel like this is consistent with that. And which in Glass Hotel, as a reminder, like Leon, gets loses his money with Arcadis' fund, and then Mirella moves up into Leon's position, and she becomes his boss. And it's definitely not the relationship in Station 11. So
You mean Miranda?
It's happened before.
Not Mirella.
Sorry, Miranda. Yes.
Yeah. Thanks, Emily. Pick some more different names, please. Mirella and Miranda. Come on, man. That's an editor should have caught that.
Hey,
yes.
Gasperry. I mean, I read that and I was like, okay, I'm gonna remember that one.
Well, that's a great thing about that name. Is it's just fully made up, which is really fun. So
it's a that name is a grandfather paradox.
Yeah, literally.
Yeah.
So I guess so Mirella is picking up her life in the wake of learning that Jonathan has fled to Dubai, and she's obviously dealing with the fact that her ex-husband Faisal took his own life as a result of the Ponzi scheme, and she's sort of figuring out her life, and she's in a relationship with this girl, and she finds herself in a theater. We go to section 2, Mirella and Vincent, 2020, and then she's watching a performance of this famous composer who we will learn is Paul, and he's playing a video clip from her childhood while he plays his weird music. And this is the section that we open with to sort of describe this video clip and the experience that Mirella has. I've got this on 44 of the EPUB. The music began first, a dreamlike swelling of strings, suggestions of static just under the surface, and then the video. Sister had walked with her camera along a faint forest path toward an old-growth maple tree. She stepped under the branches and angled her camera upward, into green leaves flashing in the sunlight, in the breeze, and the music stopped so abruptly that the silence seemed like the next beat. The beat after that was darkness. The screen went black just for a second, and there was a brief confusion of overlapping sounds. A few notes of a violin, a dim cacophony like the interior of a metropolitan train station, a strange kind of whoosh that suggested hydraulic pressure. Then in a heartbeat, the moment was over. The tree was back, and there was some chaotic camera work as the composer's sister seemingly looked around wildly, forgetting she had the camera in her hand. The composer's music resumed, that video shifting seamlessly into one of his newer works, this one involving a video that he shot himself, 5 or 6 minutes of an aggressively ugly street corner in Toronto, but with orchestral strings laboring to produce the idea of hidden beauty. The composer was working rapidly, playing sequences of notes on keyboards that emerged a beat later as violin music, building the music up in layers as the Toronto street corner ticked by on the screen over his head. In the front row of the audience, Mirella Kessler was in tears. She'd been friends with the composer's sister, Vincent, and hadn't known that Vincent had died. She left the theatre soon after and spent some time in the ladies' lounge trying to pull herself together. Deep breaths, a fortifying layer of makeup. Steady, she said aloud to her face in the mirror. Steady. And so she's come here with designs on speaking to Paul about what happened to Vincent, and the opening of that is Paul on stage basically saying, like, this was video shot by my late sister, and that's when she learns that, yeah, that Vincent's dead. Yeah, talk to me about Paul chatting to, Mirella chatting to Paul, and this kind of, I guess this section of her realizing that Vincent's dead. We can talk about the girlfriend and stuff like that in a second, because there's a really fun anecdote in particular that I thought was really charming. But yeah, how's coming back to Mirella sit with you guys?
Well, first of all, I can ask you guys, like, are you guys having trouble, like, imagining how Paul's work is supposed to be that profound that it, you know, is like popular with a lot of people? Like, I'm really struggling to like visualize his performance and like what kind of, like, I don't think it sounds like one of those like real, like, you know, pretentious art pieces that doesn't actually like emotionally make anyone feel good. It's like just it's just a transgressive, like, a piece of art to challenge you in that it's not art kind of thing. Like, that's the vibe I get from Paul's performances.
Well, let's rephrase the word famous, because it specifically says that he's famous within certain circles. So if you are in that community of artists, then you probably like know his name, I think is the way that the book phrased it. But like, just having people know who you are doesn't necessarily mean that like you do the best work. It just means that you've been around for a minute and you're putting out a volume of work enough for your name to get repeated enough that people are recognizing it. And some people absolutely adore it, such as the fedora guy that we meet in a minute. But I'm pretty sure that it specifically says that, like, the general public, no one would have any idea who he is. So it's not like he's massively popular, because this is a very niche thing, and like, it's entirely visual with the music component, so it should be something I would totally adore, but I'm pretty sure I'd hate it. So even to the
definitely sounds like he's got the right marketing and got the right people to write the right Medium articles about him and shit. Like, you know, yeah.
It's giving Andy Warhol. Just saying.
Right, yes.
Yeah. Where everyone's like, oh, it's so profound. And it's like, no, postmodernism is just kind of lazy and shitty at a certain point if you don't have anything to say with it. It's like, it has that, sorry, Andy. But this really is like the Andy Warhol effect of like, it's like someone heard someone else describing postmodernism by Jameson and went, yes, modernity has killed all meaning. I shall make art about that, but not have anything to say about it. You know.
Yeah, the tomato soup of concerts, yeah.
Big time.
I mean, it's the chapter with Mirella is pretty heartbreaking. Like, she's in so much distress, and she just, you know, like, the passage. I like how we get confirmation that she actually did recognize Vincent, but she was choosing to ignore it because, you know, at the time she was blaming Vincent for Pfizer's death and stuff like that. Again, like, more very understandable, flawed human behavior that these books do so well. But I mean, otherwise, like, it just, and I like the awkward, like, realism of, you know, Miranda goes to speak with Paul, but there's a weird fan guy there who's over enthusiastic about Paul, and some random guy who doesn't talk much gives off a creepy vibe. Like, it's all very awkward and unusual, and realistic.
I want to describe, Louisa, who's Morella's girlfriend, tells the most incredible little anecdote just before this. So this is just before we get the confirmation that Morella ignored Vincent, where she's, this is Louisa. Picture this scene. Hedge fund guy, Park Avenue apartment, non-working wife, 2 kids in private school, peak Upper East Side. Then one day, Aunt Jackie checks the Amex statement. There's a tuition payment to a private school that neither of her children attend. So she hands a statement to Uncle Mike, like, what's this crazy charge? And apparently he almost had a heart attack on the spot. So my cousins at the time, they're in like 8th grade and 9th grade, something like that. But turns out Uncle Mike's also the father of the kindergartner across the street. He put the 5-year-old's tuition payment on the wrong Amex. And it's like so funny. The buildings literally face each other. And what I like about this is it's such an absurd story. And I was like, so unrealistic. This would never happen. And then I was talking to my dad and he's like, yeah, I had like this exact thing happen with an employee where he was doing some consulting for the banks. Like he was just after he got out of mining. So like maybe the late 90s, early 2000s, doing consulting for some banks, and he was doing like an audit for one of these companies. And they started to notice some like irregularities with one of the team members. Like he was performing just fine, but you know, this was in the days of like 9 to 5, like visibility is more important than the work you actually do, right? Real old school stuff. And they noticed that this guy was like gone for hours at a time. But he'd always come back and his work would always be done. And so eventually one day Dad was like, you know, he said to one of the other consultants, hey, can you just follow this guy for a day, just see what's going on? And so what this guy was doing was he was getting to the bank at 8 a.m, putting his jacket on the back of the chair, doing an hour of work, and then walking around the block into the elevator to the bank on the other side of the building, going up, sitting down, clocking on there, doing an hour of work, walking back to the other one, doing that every day, collecting 2 paychecks. And I was like, damn, man. So this shit really happens, huh? Not so much anymore with social media and that, but it's just very funny.
I'm gonna blow your mind even further because there is, I don't know how I found it, but there's a subreddit that I found where they talk about literally that topic, and they have a specific name for this overemployment, quote unquote, and everyone is on there strategizing about how do you keep up with your job 1 without job 2 finding out, and if job 3 checks your LinkedIn and then talks to the references from job 4, then how do you work with job 1 to make sure that job 4 doesn't get you fired from job 2? So like this stuff is happening like now, and like modern technology and social media and everything is making it both like easier and harder for people to get discovered, but then if they work with it, then they could hide as well. So it's really interesting to find out that like all of this stuff that we were like, oh no, you can't hide a whole nother family. Well, yeah, you can hide a whole nother job. You could hide 3 other jobs and no one is going to know about it.
Mm-hmm. This is where you reveal that you're on like 5 other podcasts, and this isn't even the most successful one that you're on. Yes, people really are doing their best to not get crushed by capitalism. And yeah, overemployment is certainly an avenue that some people are forced to take. And I applaud them. Good on them. Yeah, but as you say, Pat, so they go for these drinks afterwards with Paul, and it's Paul, Mirella, some random fucking fan, and Gasperry goddamn Roberts. And he's being so weird. Like, he's just sitting there not talking the whole time.
What's his name? Gasperry Jacques?
Yeah, his full name is
Roberts his last
Gasperry
name?
Jacques Roberts. So Roberts is his surname.
Yeah.
And Gasperry Jacques is his full first name.
Right, okay.
Because Emily St John Mandel is Canadian, French Canadian, so the Jacques bit is the Canadian coming out, I think.
Yeah. Before getting too far into that, I had a couple notes earlier. One, as I had said, was about the date stamp at the beginning of the chapter, because that was my reminder that there are date stamps at the beginning of the chapters. So at that point, I was like, oh, This explains the language in the last chapter that I read about Edwin.
Oh my god. You would really
Yep.
think that that this being a book, the words on the page would be the biggest clues to the things that you need to know. But I love that consistently the last 2 recording sessions you've both been like, yeah, and then I realized this thing that had been on the page the whole time.
It's just something about the way it's positioned right under the chapter title. I'm just blind to it sometimes. And like I almost missed in the next chapter. I almost missed the 2204, and I'm so glad I did see it. Yeah.
I'm gonna put an image up of the page on screen, and you dear audience are going to be like, what the fuck are they talking about? It's in like 14-point font. It's one of there's 3 lines on the page, boys. I don't know what you're fucking saying to me.
Yeah,
ridiculous.
Well, I'm not defending myself. Just to be clear, I'm not defending myself whatsoever. And it was at this point that I was like, "Oh, you idiot! Dates are really, really important with this author, because it'll skip all over the place." So at that point, I was constantly flipping back to like whatever chapter I was in. I was like, "Okay, what era is this? Okay, was this the past or was this okay?" So from that point on, I was obsessively trying to check what year that we were in. But the thing that I thought was interesting about Paul specifically was the fact that after she was dead, he publicly credited his sister.
Yes, I did
for the
note
videos that he was using.
Because you brought that up last time of like, wouldn't it be better if he credited her? But it's after she's dead, when there's no recourse, that he does decide to credit her.
But he also specifically said, and he says this at the diner, I believe, where he says kind of offhandedly, "Oh, she gave me permission to use these videos." And I'm like, I don't think she was on speaking terms to even put you in a will, blah, blah, blah. Like, I don't think that actually happened. So he is still, like, stealing the work that, like, he's always done. Right? So it's like, he hasn't really changed at all, even though he's now giving her credit.
Yeah, that's completely in line with his character for me.
Totally.
That's something he would do, yeah.
Yeah, he just sees an opportunity and he takes it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Paul, what a loathsome man you've turned into and have always been, unfortunately, my friend. Yeah. It's pretty rough. It's pretty rough to, like, your sister's death to be like, aha, marketing opportunity. Like, it's really sanguine and awful.
Although, he doesn't seem to have drug problems in this, at least in this sequence. And
Yeah,
he did,
that was interesting.
and it's around the same time as the end of the last book with him. So I don't know. Maybe it's another case of
the double P.
Yes.
Lovely.
Mm-hmm. I do want to call out how tremendously disastrous Gasperry is as a time traveler once again, if that is indeed what's happening. He, at one point during the conversation, he brings up COVID-19. And that hasn't happened yet, and he's like, "Oh, but like they'll sort it out with the fomites," and they're like, "What the fuck's a fomite? Like, what are you talking about? What?" It's really good. He's just
and he says
so bad.
He says it's only January. Oh yeah, it's only January, and then he just like shrugs it off, and I'm like, you're not gonna try to hide it at all.
I think he's doing that thing where it's like, if you need to tell a lie, don't draw attention to it to like reinforce it. Just let it go and hope that someone doesn't notice that it was like inconsistent or wrong or something.
This isn't until like way later, but they mentioned that they talk about like time travel and how history has been changed, but then kind of repairs itself and blah blah blah. And at one point, some rogue time traveler had changed history 27 times before they were caught. And given how he seems so untrained, I've been thinking like, if this is time travel, he might be that rogue person that's constantly rewriting history and they don't catch him until later.
Oh
yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah. He is like Kyle Reese from Terminator levels of unpreparedness for time travel.
Oh, dude.
Show up,
Yeah.
just do whatever seems right.
He's really he's just like banging about.
Yeah.
keep this man away from your time machine, please.
In the midst of that conversation, one other interesting thing popped up, which was they put a number on the Ponzi scheme, which was
Did they?
it was, I think it was Fedora who was guessing that it was 20 to 30 billion dollars was the total value of the the accounts that were embezzled away, and that made me go back even harder to my first argument of how in the world could they possibly fail with that much money, only to find, because I was guessing like $1 billion. Like if it was 30 billion, I'm like, interest alone they should have been fine. So the fact that it failed, I'm like, this was the worst entrepreneur like ever.
Well, I hate to be the guy that's like, this is based on a real thing, but like the Bernie Madoff like scam that this is based off was a multi-billion-dollar scam. Like that's accurate to what really happened.
Well, so part of my argument there would be, I don't necessarily know enough about him, but a lot of those scams are from them like making up value. Like they'll say like, oh, I have this boat and it's worth like $2 billion, which, and it's a little rowboat or something. So they'll like inflate value, and they'll do like fake bookkeeping and stuff. But for the most part, as I understood it, like Al-Qaeda had people handing him millions and millions of dollars. They had actual liquidity coming in. So they didn't have the false numbers that a lot of these other schemes would have had if they had just properly, because for the most part, I think the issue that a lot of like investing groups have is just getting people willing to give them money. So the fact that these people were handed millions and millions and millions, or even billions, that should have been enough. Which I get that the point is that scams fail and it's realistic. But anyway, so this is just me again ranting that the big number really hit me. And I was like, either this is too realistic, so I would have been one of the people like calling the FBI because it screams like this is wrong to me, you know? Or I'm overthinking it, but that's also my thing. So
Well, they're not smart. The money that comes in, instead of investing it, they just take it. But like themselves, you receive $1 million, you need to pay out 800,000 in as interest for the people who've invested so far, and then you pocket the extra 2,000 instead of trying to, desperately like make it a legitimate business in those margins. Because the thing is like everyone involved is in this weird state for 20 plus years or whatever of like knowing that it's going to collapse one day, and so they have no investment in trying to solve it or trying to fix it. It's like just keep the money coming in. Yeah, and then plan B, and then next step is I don't know.
How close was this written to Glass Hotel?
This is 2 years after.
2 years.
Yeah, but Mandel talks about sort of conceptually having the ideas at the same time.
Because the earlier y'all were talking about the kind of like the montages and the way that things were structured, and part of what I struggle with is the idea that what is the author putting in there like super intentionally that's supposed to hint at something else, and what is the author putting in there that is just supposed to be like building a tonality or something like that, right? And that's a lot more obvious to me in a film where you'll just have a shot that is very obviously like this is establishing that it's a night scene or something like that, And so the fact that she put in this number in a conversation that only had like 100 words, it was not like, it wasn't a big conversation, and they dedicated sentences to the amount of the fund. And so I'm thinking, like, why is this in here? Is this supposed to be recontextualizing something in Glass Hotel? So that was another reason that like this really stuck in my brain as something to pay attention to.
I thought they gave that number in Glass Hotel though, around 20 billion.
They might have. given how I was obsessing with it before, I thought I would have picked that up, but they could have, and I just missed it.
Was that the number?
In here, I think it was Fedora. He said 20 or maybe 30 billion.
Okay. So that's actually really toned down from real life, because I'm pretty sure Bernie Madoff was like 170 billion. So, you know.
Yeah, damn.
So maybe Mandel was like, yeah, we'll be chilling this one. But also, it's important to know that that's the value, that's the tune to which they defrauded people. That's not necessarily the amount of money they stole. Anyway, I don't want to like, we're not economics people. I don't. We don't understand enough about this to talk about it properly. But
now we'll cut to 5-star chef Anthony Bourdain to explain it to you.
Correct. Yeah.
Can we do the hot tub one instead, please?
Yeah. Here's Margot Robbie.
Very good. There's three other things that I think we need to put our finger on here. With Mirella, so she has this exchange. It goes really poorly. She goes out to the park to like clear her head, and Gasperry comes over and talks to her. And he's not needling her, but he's digging around for information because he knows that she's sort of related to Vincent, and that she knew Vincent. And then she recognizes Gasperry from her childhood, where her and her sister were like walking back from school under this overpass, and there's two guys like that are clearly dead, and then there's a third guy who's Gasperry, or seemingly Gasperry anyway, who's like slumped there with a gun next to him, or a gun in his hand. And the newspaper headline the next day is 2 shot dead under overpass, suspect in custody, and Gasperry has no idea what she's talking about. So we could maybe infer that this is something in Gasperry's future, or a potential future, or that this is something that won't happen because of time travel, or something that will happen because of time travel. It's not super clear at this stage. It's also not super clear if it is actually him. That's the other thing. Although he does say Morella's name.
Yeah, it's such an upsetting story too. Like, it's told from the perspective of like a 9-year-old girl or something, and she comes across this scenario, and just like the part about like how nobody moves for like a long while, and there's dead people on the ground, and he's just holding the gun silent, and it's very disturbing. I was like, I don't like this. Like, it seems like a horror film all of a sudden.
And fast forwarding towards the end, where we find a little bit more about the time travel stuff, and Gasperry's sister is like trying to talk him out of it, about like how bad it is, because you have to be mentally prepared to watch that everyone that you interact with has to die in the way that they are destined to die, and you're not allowed to interact with that in any way. So the fact that he is the one, presumably, that pulls the trigger and kills these 2 people, the fact that he looks at Mirella and says her name, and the fact that, again, all of this stuff is completely against the training, makes me think that A, he's totally off script, doesn't have permission to be doing this, and is the rogue travel agent that is, like, he just saved Morella's life because he needed her for something in the future. If indeed this is about time travel.
Yeah. No, yeah, exactly. I just love how willing this book is to be like, hey, this is about time travel, guys, and then walk right up to the line each time and be like, but is this about time travel? I really enjoy that restraint. I think it's quite a it's something that Mandel is very good at, is knowing where the line is and when to cross it and when not to, even if it does annoy the shit out of Darth every time.
Well, I mean, for the record, like, for anyone who doesn't know, like, I love sci-fi stuff, and I want this to be about time travel. I'm just not gonna let myself be hurt again.
Yeah, that's fair. I did tell you anyway.
Because Station 11, I was like, oh, this is so cool. You're like going back and forth with the astronauts up in space, and there's gonna be all this cool stuff, and none of it was real. Oh,
I don't know why you guys. I said it was sci-fi because it is sci-fi. It's a post-apocalypse story, and you both went. He must mean high concept sci-fi, spaceships and aliens, etc. And then Darth was like, "What about werewolves?" Like, post-apocalypse is a sci-fi genre. I wasn't even doing a trick. Anyway,
colonizing Alpha Centauri. Okay, time travel. Get out of here.
Get out of
Get
here.
out of here with that.
Get out of here with your time travel. Other stuff that happens at this party, she has a really weird interaction with like a fortune teller where she admits that she wants to kill Jonathan Alcides. And then there's this like heartbreaking moment of she's talking to she's just had an interaction with Louisa, and she kisses, like she's like, I've got a headache, like I'm gonna go, basically. She kisses Louisa, and the sentence is just devastating. It's this is Mirella talking. I think I'm going to go. Louisa kissed her, and Mirella knew it was over. She felt nothing. Call me, Louisa said. Adieu, Mirella said as she backed away through the crowd. And Louisa, who spoke no French and didn't understand the implication, blew her a kiss. And if you've ever had that moment where you've just suddenly realized that like you're not in love with someone anymore, or that a relationship's over, and the banality and the very simple velocity of it, I thought was just brilliant, and pretty devastating, but in like a quiet way. It is very the Mandel is very good at.
Well, that led to me furiously Googling what does adieu actually mean.
Oh my god.
So that was
Oh my god. Okay.
American education, bro. What do you want?
It just every now and then it hits me.
I'm trying.
Every now and then it hits me. Je vais travailler un autre podcast, etc. and so forth. I was at one point fluent in French. These days, I can pretty much order a beer, ask for a coffee, and tell someone to fuck off. That's about it. So, I retain the important things.
That's all French people need as well.
Well, yeah, and can you pass me a cigarette? Yes, that's extremely funny. It means goodbye. I should just say that out loud.
Well, it means like farewell, doesn't it? Like,
yeah, it's more formal than like I'll see you later. It's like, yeah. Okay, do you guys have anything else on Mirella, or should we take a quick break and then go to the future?
I was trying to read up. Okay, no, I was. The fortune teller had me wondering because there was something about her that made me think of the housekeeper that Edwin had stayed with for a while, and I don't know why in my brain I was like, oh, these are the same woman, and she's time traveling. But reading that passage again, I don't know why I thought that. So Mandela's gotten into my brain, and I don't know what is.
She's in there, man, kicking all the wires out of the walls and shit. Yeah. Okay. In that case, we will take a very quick break, and we'll be back to talk about the two futures. And as a little sizzle to make you want to come back, the next section is called Last Book Tour on Earth, which the first time I read this book, I got up to this point, like I got to like, I guess what's page 65 for me in the EPUB. And I was like, I don't know about this book. And then in the physical copy, I turned the page and I was like, let's fucking go. Like, it's such a great, oh, it's so good. Yeah, we'll be right back to talk about my favorite part of the book. Catch you then.
We're only through my first 4 points.
Yeah, I know. I have so much written down. If you like these handcrafted studies of genre fiction, please head over to zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to consider supporting us. Even if you just give us a follow on Patreon, that helps us out. Leave a comment, a like, and if you're in a financial position to do so, you can support us and get access to early content additional videos, director's commentaries, audio diaries, and all kinds of different things we have coming up. It really makes a difference helping keep independent media crit alive. Once again, that is zeroindent.com or patreon.com/zeroindent if you'd like to support us. Welcome back. Let's talk about the last book tour on Earth. This might be my favorite part of a book that I've read in a really long time. I love this section. It starts in 2203, so 2203. We follow Olive Lewin, who is a fairly transparent, I would say, author insert for St. John Mandel. And Olive is basically touring Earth. She lives on Moon Colony 2 with her family. And yeah, she's traveling Earth doing this book tour that is a little bit tense for a bunch of reasons. Her husband is clearly not happy that she's away, or he's struggling to deal with the fact that she's not there. It's not super clear on the exact dynamic yet. And then to make things worse, there's rumors of a pandemic that starts in Australia. And she starts to become increasingly worried about this pandemic.
Starts in data terms.
It does, man. I don't know what to tell you.
Yeah.
It's patient zero over here. Certainly felt like it the last month, let me tell you. Yeah, I'm not sure where I want to start. I guess we could maybe start with Olive sort of dwelling on the setup of her life. So she's lived on Space Colony 2 her entire life. She describes it as a city of white stone, spired towers, tree-lined streets, and small parks, alternating neighborhoods of tall buildings and little houses with miniature leaves, a river running under pedestrian archways. But there's something to be said for unplanned cities. Colony 2 was soothing in its symmetry and its order. Sometimes order can be relentless. Which is just an all-time sentence that I wish I'd written. Mandel has these occasionally where she just finds an epigram and I'm like, yes, this rules.
Yeah, just look at like any Soviet bloc city.
Mm-hmm. I think about it anytime I go to Canberra, and like it's just Canberra's so unnatural because it's so well organized.
Well, Mitchie would say that that's the great thing about it.
Mm-hmm. He'd be like, "Well, it's logical, and you always know where you're going." And I'm like, "No, stop it! I don't like this."
I was just gonna say, like the opposite of that is Brisbane, and it's not great. So some middle ground probably is what you want.
I mean, I guess Melbourne's kind of the middle ground, but I mean, look, here's the thing. This is the part of the podcast that's impenetrable for people that don't live in Australia. What I would say is that Brisbane has a certain logic to it if you just accept that it's all organized around the river. But it's just that river is chaotic, is what makes it seem disorganized, because it's a big S.
Sure.
Anyway, this has been Australia Talk. Darth, you go.
I think the best example that I have that makes that stand out to me was from Skeleton Crew, which is one of the Star Wars Disney shows, and one of the neighborhood, it's like a residential sci-fi neighborhood, but everything is laid out in that planned way where like the houses are the same and the driveways are like evenly spaced, and like everything was built like to blueprints on a like citywide scale. And so the whole thing was very like symmetrical in a way that was pleasing, but also it was like unnerving for everything to be like so perfectly, I don't know. So the phrasing there, like I loved it, and that's what I jumped back to. So when I'm picturing these moon stations, that's what I was thinking back to, was like Skeleton Crew, and how everything was laid out so perfectly. And I wasn't necessarily thinking of these like cities where like the symmetry is like so oppressive, but it's all just like gray and ugly and everything. Because I don't know, for some reason I was thinking like the way that they built these was a little more aesthetically pleasing, because they had some descriptions of like plants and that kind of thing.
Yeah, well, I mean, Manhattan is a symmetrical grid. It's like there's a lot of diversity and stuff like that.
Hmm. Yeah, they go to Black Spider-Man.
Yeah, that's what I meant. Yeah.
Love that. Awesome.
That took a good 3 seconds to hit. That was great. I was quick on the trigger with that one.
He couldn't have done a dad joke. Was that David?
I'm on fire today, boys. Yes. Sometimes order can be relentless. I love it. Yeah, and like it is, in theory pretty and like, well organized and stuff like that. But I think that this is part of Olive working through the paradox of this book tour, right? Which is she loves the sense of freedom it brings, but she misses her family a tremendous amount. And I think this is at the heart of like traveling for work, right? Which is like no matter how aggressively rewarding the freedom is, it's always at some expense that you, an individual, is paying in order to make the work happen or to make the business happen. I think often of the way that I was listening to, I can't think of who it was, I was listening to some comedian talking about like that they've been on the road for basically like 10 months. And they were like, yeah, like I literally couldn't have done this without the fact that like I have like a family at home. They're able to keep life running for my family so I can go and do this work. And so I think one of the things that Mandel is keying into about traveling for work is that especially when you do have a family, it's not just you that pays that price, like that expense for that thing to happen. It's the other people in your orbit that have to support that possibility, and that they are doing extra labor to make that thing happen that is like necessarily unpaid labor. And I just think it's an interesting. This goes back to, I think, some of the stuff that we talked about with Leon and Miranda and logistics and travel and stuff like that. That Mandel is very interested in what logistics and physical space does to us, and especially in this context, what traveling can do and not do, I think.
And I don't know if this was necessarily meant to like be a parallel with in Station 11 at the end, and I should not be blanking on what's his face, the main character, but he gets his family, and he's a traveling doctor, so he's like, one of the scenes towards the end is him leaving his kids behind for him to go off and go on dangerous missions to go help people. And this, this author lamenting being away from her family, I don't know, that connection kind of seems inescapable.
Yeah, I think it's like a thread that runs through all of her work to an extent. This thing is gone as like centrally about a guy who like goes to Italy to escape his life, and then his mistress like follows him there, and they end up like setting up shop in Italy and having like ostensibly they live happily ever after, because of this distance they put between themselves and the US. The Lola Quartet is about like someone without a fixed place of residence, right? Someone experiencing homelessness with a kid, and yeah, I think all of her work is about that. And his name is Jeevan. So
thank you.
Yeah, put some respect on my boy.
Real fans of the show would.
Yeah, that's right. Well, actually, show fans wouldn't, but book readers would know, because we experienced the true story. The other thing that's happening is Mandel, and I think Pat already has touched on this a little bit at the very start, was this is also her reflecting a bit on the reception of Station 11 too. She's book touring for this book called Marienbad, and it's basically received in this universe the same way that Station 11 was. Did this surprise you to know that this sentiment of how people responded to this book? Like, did this make sense to you based on, obviously you guys haven't read the book, but like knowing what the story of Station 11 is, were you surprised by some of the content here, or did it sort of line up with how you'd expect Station 11 to be received?
It's funny. I wasn't specifically actually thinking of Station 11 when I was reading these, the fan comments and interactions and stuff. I thought this could generally be applied to like a lot of popular narrative stories that are unconventional, and like just don't follow like very, 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 very established popular story beats and tropes and stuff like that, you always get people like that, like, why did you do this? Well, explain yourself. And it's like, what do you mean? It's like it's for effect. It's you know, everything's there, like for the, you know, it's a combination of, you know, style and drama and moving the plot forward and just, you know, little interesting insights into human psychology. You know, it's all of those things that make up imagination and, you know, decisions that you put into your creative works and stuff like that. But yeah, like people that, like, I'm not trying to make a what do you call it, like a pejorative generalization of people that go to those events, but like, you know, you do hear a lot of stories like that where people just like, you know, have very, very, very like specific assumptions about, or like go into those things with very specific ideas of how stories should work, and because, you know, it's like the kind of stories they like, and it's like, why did you do it this way, and like in sort of like an accusatory tone. Anyway, that's, yeah, that's where my mind went.
I imagine that's really similar to the data on the people who are most likely to like leave user reviews. And it's
Right.
like the people who are the angriest or the most disappointed are going to be the most vocal all of the time. And you know, and the people who are at the other end of the spectrum who are like absolutely overjoyed, like a small percentage of them will turn out and will speak up, and then everyone else who's in the middle like doesn't contribute at all. So all of the people who are showing up to these book tours are either like the super fans who loved everything and don't question a thing, or the haters who think the thing was stupid and they're like, I want to yell at the author about this.
Oh yeah. My least favorite type of,
The people who want to yell at the author are also the people who love it, I find.
this is the here's the thing. It's that, or it's like people who want to yell about it or yell at the person are the people who are like necessarily like, they are people who very often will give into like dilettism more than they should, where like they are like casual. I think about this a lot with video games. So like I follow the video game industry quite closely through a series of like media outlets of like journalists that, you know, have been doing this for their entire careers. And the discourse you always see around certain scandals or certain dramas in video games, it's always people complaining about stuff, and it's so clear to me that those people don't play video games, the people that are complaining. Like, they like the idea of playing video games, but they want to be mad about video games more than they like playing video games, if that makes sense. I do feel like it's sort of a similar...
Well, because the thing they actually want is like to sort of be like a trendy authoritative figure on that subject.
Yeah, which is why we don't really do, like, we think about this a lot. We don't really do discourse in the contemporary sense of like, we never have anything to say about like some new drama that's happening or something that's happening, because it's just like not what we do. But there are people who lavish that kind of being able to participate and be momentarily, like you say, Pat, like an authority or at least a voice that is listened to on certain topics, more than they care about what they're saying or what it means, I sometimes think. I think about this a lot with Darth's YouTube comment section, where there's a bunch of people that clearly critically engage with a thing and have like meaningful, thoughtful things to say. Then there's a bunch of fucking psychopaths that are like, they don't even really watch it. They just want to have something bad to say because it's about Star Wars and they want to be an authority on Star Wars, right? Like there's a sorry, I shouldn't have said psychopaths. I'm sure they're lovely people in real life. Their comments give crazy person, like unhinged energy. And I just think a lot about the kind of, one of the things that we couldn't have predicted with the democratization of voice with social media is that with that, you also lose the weight that comes with proper discourse. And by that, I mean, like, proper discourse, like, you weigh what different people have to say about a thing based on their relative authority to the thing, usually, or how interesting it is their thought is on the thing, right? I'm not saying that you should only listen to experts about everything. I think that we can all see that, you know, technocracy as a concept failed. I think George Bush Jr. really walked that horse up to the water and shot it in the face with a shotgun. But, you know, I think we all had this imaginary idea of experts becoming the thing we listen to off the back of the 80s and JFK. And what we learned with like Reagan and like the birth of the postmodern era is it turns out that giving everyone the ability to say anything about anything might be bad for discourse. Like the fact that, you know, Joe Q, fucking whoever, can say something that can be amplified above and beyond someone who knows what they're talking about or studies this thing or is an expert on this thing or thinks about these things deeply and has like serious conversations and engagement with it. That has produced a certain desire in people to be noticed. I think I've described it somewhere in my notes here as like famous for no reason, or I can't remember how I phrased it, but like the people who are going to these book tours are the same people that on social media would be the type of people who would post some shit on TikTok that blows up, and then they're just famous for not anything really. Like I think often about the Haley Welsh chick, the Hawk Tour girl, right? She became famous for nothing. And turns out that when you're famous for nothing and you don't have anything to contribute or add to the world, the fame doesn't do you a heck of a lot of good. You can scam a bunch of people and make some money, but like, if you're not doing it for a reason, then it's not really fame at all. It's just notoriety. And I think that Mandel is maybe a little bit reflexive here on her experience as an author who, like, frankly, she became famous because people realized Station 11 was written in 2016 and it became really popular in 2020 during the pandemic. Like, I don't know, there's a lot of ideas buried in there that I'm sure someone could draw out and you know, write a pretty interesting, you know, paper on how Mandel sees the industry and the internet and its relationship to the authors themselves based on the contents in this section.
As an interesting side note, because someone's going to bring it up, the Hawktua girl apparently really did some good work with the brief 15 minutes that she had, because she like started up a nonprofit and had like multiple like little businesses, I think, like selling merch and stuff, and like capitalized on that 15 minutes of fame in a way that I don't know that I've seen. I can't say ever, but it really like hit me as being unusual that someone could take that and run with it. So anyway, side note.
Well, she probably should have stopped before she did the crypto scam, but that's probably neither here nor there. When she did that giant financial crime, that she's like, how could I have possibly known that this would... Anyway. Ridiculous.
Hey, some people know and not know at the same time.
That's...
Yeah,
it's
right.
true, especially
right.
people doing financial crime, it turns out. One of my favorite bits
Morals,
of this...
ethics, you got.
Okay. I'm cutting that out. We're not... That's not making it into the edit. Just for your sake, Pat.
What? You're not going to put it in for my sake?
I'm going to bleep that because I'm going to have
It's gonna
no
be used
idea what you
against me.
said. Yeah, it'll be used against you in a court of law in the future. Very good. I love this 71. There's this woman, it's in Dallas, and she's sort of like, she says, there are all these narrative strands, narratively speaking, all these characters, and I felt like I was waiting for them to connect, but they didn't ultimately. The book just ended. I was just like, huh? Is the book missing pages? It just ended. And then Olive says, okay, just to clarify, your question is, the woman says, I was just like, what? My question is just, she spread her hands like, help me out here. I've run out of words. Which feels like a real conversation that Emily St John Mandel had, because the ending of Station 11 is a pretty contentious moment in the book, at least, because as I said in the book, you know, it doesn't have the same connective tissue that the show does with Jeevan and Kirsten having survived the apocalypse together. Instead, they just bump into each other 20 years later, and Kirsten kills the prophet, and then the book ends. So this feels to me like a real reaction to to some of the criticism people had of the actual novel Station 11 as well.
See, I thought it was from Glass Hotel because
Or could be.
at least just coming off of the show, like everything wrapped up so well, and even from what you just described, like that wrapped up fairly well. But the idea that this woman just couldn't tie all of these threads together, like that seems much more of a Glass Hotel thing because there weren't that many threads in Station 11. It was just a few like main characters, right?
That's a good point.
Anyway, I also had that same part noted because that was a literal like discussion that we had in that previous episode about how these threads don't tie together, and you still, after 15 readings, you're like, I don't know what this book means, and I'm picturing you gesturing with your hands just like the woman is doing in the audience, like, help. Like, what are we supposed to think? Where are the rest of the words? There should have been more here.
Help me, Emily.
And then the fact that she put this in here, like, is this her acknowledging that the audience is right to feel that something is missing, or is it her maybe trying to point out that maybe we're missing the point? I don't know.
I think it's like her, Emily Mandel, like trying very politely to vent about how dumb some people at the conventions are.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
because like it's pretty painful, like watching like watching recordings of these things when like like fans who maybe like somewhere on the spectrum or something ask some really odd or unusual or inappropriate question. You see the author like fuck, like or they try to be professional about it and like engage in a like get on their level sort of thing, like try not be too sort of what do you call it, like I don't know, that they genuinely try to like pass their question and get underneath what it is they're saying to what they actually might want to ask, kind of thing. Yeah, it's just painful watching those things.
Yeah, and you really feel Olive straining against the need to always be performing throughout this tour. Like she's always on, she's always mediating her behavior through what's happening, and then when she's not doing that, she's basically playing defense to the men that she has to keep interacting with, who keep doing weird things. Like that was interesting too. Like I think it's sort of an interesting statement. I think that Mandel, she's like 2 centuries from now, women are going to have to deal with the same sexist bullshit as they deal with today, like exactly the same. And I was like, that is interesting. Mm.
No, because I'm not saying that that's probably not going to happen. I reckon that good chance it will. But like obviously, I reckon attitudes will evolve very much more subtly and nuanced and stuff like that. But like, it definitely does seem like, the tone of a woman who has had to deal with a lot of bullshit from men, and she's just like kind of venting that.
Preface: this is not trying to defend men, because all of those examples in the book are terrible and guys need to learn and do better. So having said that,
Darth's like, let's step into the incel zone.
well, I was gonna say that I thought it was really interesting, like the one interview where Olive broke and walked away was being conducted by a woman. And that was the one where the interviewer was doing this mystery guessing game thing, and ended, the last question was on handcuffs in bed, yes or no. And for some reason that utterly broke Olive, and she like walked away like bursting into tears. But all of the other instances were from guys, and so it would have been very on theme for this to have been a guy who went way past her boundaries, but it wasn't. And I was questioning why this was a woman. Like it should have been a guy to drive home that theme, and it wasn't.
My mind went to, it was clearly like meant to be allegorical to some like BuzzFeed reporter, right? Who's like, wants to wants to spin up one of those like, oh, the famous author Olive Llewellyn has some sex tips for you or some shit like that. That's what I was thinking.
I think that is probably right. I also think that in not having it be a man, it lets this be far more poignant than I think had this been a man, it might have felt a bit like to some readers, like Mandel was just man bashing for this whole section, like just being anti-man, right? I think she's much more critical of, like, this section is her reflecting on her experience, clearly doing book tours and having to deal with all the bullshit that men do and say. And that interview with that woman is, yeah, like Pat's saying, like, it's supposed to have like a salacious quality to it. It's got nothing to do with her book at all. And I think it's it's like a straw that broke the camel's back. Like, it's the last straw for her. But also, this is I was thinking about this last night. This interview is the kind of internet journalism that Jeevan was doing when he was blogging. And I was so surprised this wasn't Jeevan. I was like, this is the exact type of shit that he was doing when he had his blog. And in fact, you guys wouldn't be aware of this because it's just in the book, but in fact, in the book, he's actually taking photos of... he becomes a paparazzi when that blog fails, and he's taking photos of Miranda the night that she leaves Arthur and burns down the pool house, and he's actually he's across the street taking photos with a telephoto lens, and then he reflects on some really cursed interviews that he did with various people that were like this style of interview. But yeah, I think it's I think it lets the stuff about the men's behavior feel far less like she's pointing the finger and saying men are bad, and far more her going, isn't this experience truly challenging and difficult and catastrophic? And maybe it is also the how do I say this? The fact how do I say this without spoiling anything? The fact that it's about sex, I think you could also put next to the really tense relationship she has with her husband at the moment. And maybe it causes her to think about her marriage inadvertently. And that could be why she breaks down as well.
I had been waiting to ask that. Because her crying, I was like, yeah, that could just be like the straw that broke the camel's back, but there's nothing in the text that says that. So like, is there something else, and what is the author trying to say? So maybe it just hasn't gotten there. It's also worth noting that we have gone back in time again. So the previous chapter was in the 2400s, and now we're back to 2203, which was the same time frame as the first jump forward in time that we had. And
Wait.
Jeevan's been dead for 200 years at this point.
Yeah, I know. I forgot about that. Okay. I just meant that it's the kind of thing that he would do. All right, don't fucking cinema sins me, bro.
Someone was going to say it, so I might as well call you out on it.
Okay. Rude. Yeah, so one thing I do enjoy is the way that she sort of conveys the sense of doing the same thing over and over. So she's clearly doing like lectures. She's going around doing these lectures. And if you've ever done a job where you have to deliver the same information and the same speech over and over again, it can really start to feel like this. She talks about the fact that like it requires very little in the way of conscious thought. And she's able to do this lecture while having these other thoughts, which is like so relatable. And there's this great section, I have this on 76. She kept thinking about the conversation with the driver because she remembered saying, it seems like it's been fairly well contained. But here's an epidemiological question. If you're talking about outbreaks of infectious disease, isn't fairly well contained essentially the same thing as not contained at all? Focus, she told herself, and pulled herself back to the reality of the podium, the hard bright light, the microphone. And then she talks about a virus is either contained or it isn't. It's a binary condition, which I think as we all experience with the pandemic, like, and she's telling this really horrific story of the Black Plague, first arriving on Vancouver Island, and the way that this novel is, I guess, a a reflection of some of that. It's worth knowing as well that Marienbad is a place, which is also the title of the book. And the British Columbia stuff with Vancouver and with like Italy and with the Czech Republic is all bound up in here. And I think if you squinted this long enough, you can get a picture for what this novel is. But, you know, we don't necessarily have to do that. I think it's more relevant that this is a Mandel style novel than necessarily the contents of the novel. It is, of course, important the contents of the novel are about like a pandemic apocalypse, but yeah.
Yeah. You know what's a weird thing is that, David, you and I are currently watching a show about a female book writer who's on tour when a virus infects the entire world.
Yes, we are.
Yeah.
Yeah. Makes you think.
Have you been watching Pluribus stuff?
What was the name of it?
Pluribus?
As in E Pluribus Union? I don't think I've heard
That's
of
what the
that.
show's called. It's Vince Gilligan's show on Apple TV.
It's very good.
And yeah, it's about a big, I don't know if you'd call it a pandemic. It seems like a kind of inaccurate way to describe that, but it is a virus that affects the whole world.
Yeah.
I guess that's I guess that's a good lead-in to one note that I had when in the 2203 era where they're talking about another outbreak going on, and her book was about an outbreak, and her speeches are about pandemics in centuries past, and that's something that people tend to overlook, the fact that you could almost count on these outbreaks happening every, X number of years. Whether that's, like once a century, there will be a bad one. Once every decade, there will be a moderate outbreak, And like just the stuff that we've experienced coming up through our lives, there's a handful we could instantly name that, like, not even the big recent one, And so the idea that hundreds of years later in the future, there's still these outbreaks was just interesting because of the cyclical nature of these stories, and outbreaks being cyclical inherently is a really interesting thing. Of course, I guess everything is cyclical if you
on a large enough
really
time
get
scale.
into that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would keep that in mind, I guess is what I would say. I think that like this book is very interested in that as an idea.
Okay, speaking of that, did anyone clock the constant references to flowers in the hotels?
Not explicitly, but I did notice it. Why?
Specifically, there was a painting of a pink flower, which she thought was a peony, in one of the hotels, and my immediate reaction was that this was a reference to the Black Plague and the Pocket Full of Posies nursery rhyme that came out of that era, and there was at least one more reference where she specifically says that they were like silk flowers that were in the hotel, and there may have been more of them, but I was like, two references, flowers and talking about plagues. I'm like, that can't be a coincidence. That's gotta be referencing. But whether or not that's just a fun little, thing that she threw in there, or whether it's important to the story, I don't really know.
I guess the thing that I would say to that is like a question in this book is going to become the nature of reality. And so like identifying clues like that is like for once, a meaningful and productive exercise instead of being like trying to solve the text.
For once.
So I would keep that in mind. I didn't notice it, but that I could absolutely see that being deliberate, I guess is what I would say. Yeah.
I'll throw in one more random note and then let you
Yeah.
continue. I had this thought when I was reading, and then I asked Eric about it, and we were together recently, and I was like, so 200 years from now, the hotel chain Marriott and La Quinta are still around, and he's like, La Quinta? Are you sure? 200 years from now? And so part of me was like laughing at the either reality or ridiculousness of this chain that is like considered like kind of low tier still existing in the future. Maybe it's just the American version of it. But anyway, that just hit me.
I don't
Well,
know,
never forget that in the Alien universe, where Yutani gets bought out by Walmart. So
Yeah. And in Blade Runner, like you can still buy Coca-Cola and Sony and that are like the biggest companies. So they're gonna outlive
Well,
us
yeah,
all.
yeah. The like the megacorps, that totally makes sense. If it was like she was staying at like the Walmart Inn Express, I wouldn't have batted an eye. Not at all.
It speaking of, there's a section, I've got this in 82, but this is where she goes, and she's talking to the librarian in Cincinnati, the director of the library in Cincinnati. And she's having a bad day. And the librarian says, "Let me tell you something magnificent about this place." And the director goes on, and she says, "We don't own the building, but we hold a 10,000-year lease on the space." To which Olive says, "You're right, that's magnificent." And then the librarian says, "19th century hubris. Imagine thinking civilization would exist in 10,000 years, but there's more." She leaned forward, paused for effect. "The lease is renewable." And I don't know, man. Are you kidding me? Like, come on, dude. Like, this is just. She can do the fucking thing, guy. Like, sections like this make me so angry because I will never be this good. This is such a like, holy shit. Imagine sitting down at your keyboard and thinking of that exact sequence of things and then ending it on the lease is renewable. Fuck off. That's so good. I love that so much.
is that what the chapter ends on?
That's where the section ends, and then we get a few more like
Oh, okay.
flashes. It's just so good. Makes me mad.
What? Or just relate that to the story. What's the theme there? Just that like
It's the
general.
Well, yeah, the hubris of like these people thinking that like society would be around in 10,000 years, but then also the notion of like ownership, right? There's this magnificent piece of history. You know, she talks about like this woman's office is like under hundreds and hundreds of stacks of like hundreds of year old books, and like this is like the best office she's ever seen, and even the best office she's ever seen isn't even really owned by the library. But that on a time scale, this place that represents this huge time scale is also indelibly temporary, and is somehow borrowed. And is everything in this book is thinking about like the concept of whether anything we have is really ours, and like whether any of this is really real and solid. And I think this is like such a good version of that, where it's Mandel gesturing to something and going, this is flavor that you can then put in conversation with those themes, or you can just read it by itself. Like it's the exact right amount of esoterica for me, where I could sit down and like, if I were doing a thesis on this book, I could make this scene explode to explain the whole novel, or you could reduce it to explain none of the novel, and just have it be, you know, texture. It's got that quality to it to me.
Yeah, I was gonna say that when I read that, I was immediately cluing in on like 10,000 years is supposed to be one of those like cyclical numbers. Like every 10,000 years, we have a new ice age, or we have a new like something happens. And then I was just reading. I was like, what are the significance of 10,000 years? And in Texas, they built a clock that's supposed to last for and keep ticking. I think it ticks like once a year, and it's supposed to last 10,000 years. So there's something about 10,000 years as a number that is cyclical and is like indelibly in humanity. And so like her putting that number there and saying it's renewable Meaning that like we could keep repeating it over and over. Like this library can keep existing here over and over every cycle of 10,000 years. Makes me think about the whole that it was the former that you could write a whole paper on how this like defines the purpose of the book.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay, I've got a couple more little things on Olive. Her husband Dion is building the Time Institute. We kind of pick up. And I've written down here in the marginalia of the EPUB, I've written down, husband is designing building for time travel equals Darth must be very gratified. Because it was a.
I forgot about that.
Nope, it meant nothing to me.
Damn it!
not until the end of the book.
Okay.
Like they can talk about time travel all they want, but until the end of the book, I won't believe it because I don't trust her.
Okay. All right. Okay. This is a really good sentence, which is what is time travel if not a security problem? That I also thought really stuck out to me.
Good.
And then we get Olive is interviewed by seemingly, again, asterisk, maybe not, Gasperry Roberts. And just before that, one of my other favorite details is she's at a random book signing, and this woman like hands her a book and she says, "Is this your handwriting?" And it's not Olive's handwriting, and it's a copy of Marienbad, and the writing is Harold. I enjoyed last night. XOXOXOXO Olive Lewin. Olive stared at the message and felt a touch of vertigo. No, she said, I don't know who wrote that. She was distracted for days afterward by the thought of a shadow Olive moving over the landscape on a kind of parallel tour, writing uncharacteristic messages in Olive's books. So provocative and evocative.
The Mrs. Scratch for Olive Llewellyn.
Dude, that was my immediate
Alan Wake reference for all the Remedy heads out.
Yeah. When invariably we do our Remedy unit, that will all make sense. Yeah, it's just really fucking. I love ideas like this where it's sort of it again is like touching on these questions of reality, but it's by itself it's evocative. But then you could also fold it into like a grander conspiracy about what's happening. But I was thinking about it and I was like, that would be really freaky. Like if someone handed me a copy of one of my books and there was just like handwriting from someone else saying some shit I'd never say. Like I was, they hand me a copy of like Maynard Trick 2 and on the inside is like, to Patrick, capitalism rules. Love David. Like, be like, who the fuck? It's a really powerful notion because it does make you start to ask questions of like, well, who did write this and why? And was it someone pretending to be Olive Lewin? Like, I don't know. It's just a really evocative concept to just drop in there and then move away from really quickly as well. I really enjoyed that.
Well, I like how there's a lot of room for benefit of the doubt, basically, because she's a famous person. That sort of stuff happens a lot to famous people,
Mm-hmm.
You could easily just write it off as unhinged fan behavior.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There were two bits of technology that I wanted to mention. One was, which was also a funny bit where someone is asking her in an interview about her family and how much she misses them, and says, "Oh, it's so nice of your husband to babysit your child while you're out here." And she's like, "Oh, I'm sorry, there must be something wrong with my translator bot. I thought you said it was nice of my husband to take care of his child."
It's so
and
good.
She just like walks away.
It's so good.
And like the line, the line hit so hard and I loved it. But then I like, because it's me, I like went back and I was like, translator bot? Like that language is at once like specific but so ambiguous that it could mean anything. Because that like could literally be like C3PO standing there and he's the translator bot, or it could be like a little thing that's on your phone and you've got an ear device, and you're just like hearing it through the thing. And there's no description to the tech at all. And I noticed the same thing multiple times whenever they talk about what we would call a phone or a tablet, they just call it device. And there's no description as to what the device looks like or what it does. It's just a thing that's there to move the plot along and to pull up whatever information they need, but there's no attention paid to it whatsoever, which was very, very interesting to me from especially from a sci-fi perspective, because they focus on that stuff in sci-fi, but in here, not whatsoever.
Yeah.
I've noticed that sci-fi does that a lot, like soft sci-fi. No, yeah, I don't know the terminology, but like sci-fi that is, the setting is sci-fi, but it's not about sci-fi. And you try and make the technology less producty and more abstract, as to like sort of give it a more timeless feel. Like, because if you say a device, then that could, if you're reading this in the future and you have something closer to that, that's obviously something more specific. You can more easily interpret that in your head as the thing that actually exists.
I thought it was maybe the thing that's odd to me is just literally the language, because the idea being that the people in this world are so unattached to theoretically the most important device in their life that there is no name for it. Because people now, they wouldn't ever call their iPhone a random device. That is their iPhone. There's going to be.
I think that I disagree. Okay. The word phone has such ubiquity now that I don't say,
True.
oh, Patrick's on his Android or whatever. I go,
Nothing
Patrick's on his
phones
phone.
away.
Yeah, Patrick's kids, you don't say like the kids are always on their iPhones. You say the kids are always on their phones. Like, I think it's doing a substitution of the word, if the same way that we use the word phone ubiquitously for device, because it does a bunch of other stuff. So I see what you're saying. I'm just not sure that culture is as attentive to technology as you are as a person. That's all. Like, for you, you would look at that and you'd be like, that's an Android, or that's a Google Pixel, or that's a Samsung Galaxy, or that's an iPhone. People just see phone. You know what I mean? Like, I think there is a...
Ironically, I think I was arguing... ironically, I think I was arguing the opposite, that, I wouldn't necessarily care what the thing is called, because that's not... I identify things, like, either visually or functionality-wise, but I think, the rest of humanity, for the most part, would be like, I don't want to call this a device, I want to call it communicator. Something like that. Anyway, I'm not stuck on that. It was just a random thought where I was like, why is device is just such a weird term to use, and what is she trying to tell us about this? Because in all of these, look in any of these future sci-fi stories, and they have specific kind of fancy names for whatever their quote unquote communicator is, and this is the exact opposite. So it's like, is she trying to say that in the future technology is less important because it's so ubiquitous, and now there is no operating system. You don't have Apple versus Microsoft and all this other stuff. You just have the device. Although they talk later about how the OS had a glitch and it did stuff, so there's maybe that.
Yeah, there's still freedom of choice in OS in 2401, which is good.
Yeah.
Nice to know. All right, let me touch on two things with Olive, and then we can move into the future, because I was conscious of time here. There's a really good conversation that Olive has where a poet is talking about the chickens, she's talking about the phrase, the chickens are coming home to roost. And she says, because it's never good chickens. It's never, you've been a good person and now your chickens are coming home to roost. It's never good chickens. It's always bad chickens. And then Olive writes down in the marginalia of her festival program the phrase, no good chickens, which is great. And that's where we get the title of the next section, Bad Chickens, which is just a really fun phrase. And then she gets interviewed by Gasperry, who asks about a scene in Marienbad that resembles, which we'll learn later, very closely resembles the experience that Edwin had on the beach in Caiette, that mirrors the experience that Vincent's video camera captured. I mean, presumably, this scene in Marienbad is mirrored by an experience that Olive actually had at some point in her life as well. So it's sort of everything is circling around this one sort of incident, as it were, that we'll talk about in a sec. But he does a pretty dreadful job of this interview because he's really bad at this thing, and he sort of digs into this concept, and she kind of confirms. We cut away, but the implication is she confirms that this was something that really happened because she talks about it off the record. And then we go to 2401, so another 200 years in the future for the next section. There is something else I have to say before we get there, though, which is this section, No Bad Chickens, opens with the same phrase that's scrawled on Jonathan Arquidis' cell in Glass Hotel, which is "No star burns forever." Which, it made me go, huh. That, and the way that it's sort of laundered here is basically like, you can say it's the end of the world and mean it, but what gets lost in that kind of careless usage is that the world will eventually literally end. Not civilization, whatever that is, but the actual planet. Which is not to say that those smaller endings aren't annihilating. A year before I began my training at the Time Institute, I went to a dinner party at my friend Ephraim's place, and then from there we go on. But it's the No Star Burns Forever. I think Mandel is thinking a lot about the difference between the end of civilization and the end of the world here, and what those things mean. So, Gasperry, talk to me about.
Briefly, prior to him, I had two quick things. One is when Olive is talking about like meeting someone, interviewing asks about meeting her husband, and like if she thought it was love at first sight, and it repeats the same thing that we heard in the last book, which was recognizing someone who will be an important part of your life, but not knowing what that part would be yet.
Mm-hmm.
And repeating that theme again brings me back to like a cyclical nature kind of thing, that these characters from across time are all reporting the same thing of recognizing people, but not knowing what the attachment level is going to be. And that was Vincent and the guy on the ship that she was dating.
Yeah, Jeffrey Bell.
The second interesting thing was that Marienbad, the book that Olive wrote, also had a character who was called the Prophet, who was killed. And I'm wondering if you recall how the Prophet was killed in Station 11's novel.
He gets really Kirsten just like throws a knife into the back of his back, basically. It's like really unceremonious.
Because specifically in here, the person is questioning Olive and saying like, you killed the Prophet so quickly and like unceremoniously, and the story moved on so quickly. And then there's like another couple paragraphs of Olive questioning, did I kill him too quickly? And I'm like, is this supposed to tie into Station 11? And if so, what is it saying?
See if I can find it. Not going to be able to now. But yeah, it is really unceremonious, and it is a criticism.
It was on page 94, 94 for me.
Oh no, I'm looking at Station 11.
Ah.
Yeah, she just like throws a knife in the back of his head.
So she is good at throwing knives. You know this.
It's really true, dude. It's kind of one of her main things. Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to find it now. But yeah, it's like really unceremonious. And the book keeps going for like another 10 pages and then it just ends. So yeah, I think that is a criticism that people had. And I think it's actually really great because it really communicates the like material reality of this world, and just like this stuff happens every day.
But But what is the point of Mandel repeating that here with this character in Marienbad?
I think she's just venting.
Is it-
It's like,
She's just
it's
being
like
funny.
Pat said. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that it's like any big statement other than like, yeah, people did really say this shit about my book, huh?
Yeah.
Well, and we had
You
the same
fucking
criticism
idiots.
of Glass Hotel. Like it's like a thing people say. Like there are just certain things people say about certain authors, right? Like everyone says that Stephen King doesn't know how to finish a book. Like there are just things that become, George Martin can never finish writing a book. These are just things that people say. Alan Moore needs to shut the fuck up about the solved universe already. There's just things about authors that become hypocritical sort of sayings almost. And the fact that Mandel can't finish a book is one of them, I think. Yeah. Just thinking if I had anything else on that. I don't think I did. No. Okay,
Philip
so...
K. Dick's books are like that.
Yeah?
Just like everything wraps up in like the last few pages, and you're like, "What?" I was expecting more of a conclusion. But okay.
Yeah, I definitely had that with... Oh, I was reading one earlier this year. What was it? I'm not going to be able to put my finger on it now. But I finished a Philip K. Dick book in like January, and I remember thinking like, yeah, I think it might have been A Scan of Darkly or something like that. And it literally, like, it was like the plot was ramping up, and then it was like 3 pages tying it together, book over. And I'm like, oh,
Yeah.
okay. Okay. All right. Okay,
Right.
Phil. Yeah, it's definitely a type of guy. But yeah, so we go to Gasperry Jacques Roberts, who is working at a hotel because this is an Emily St John Mandel novel. So you can have one of 3 jobs. You can be an author, you can work at a hotel, or you can work in logistics. That's it. That's all you're allowed to do.
Or some really shitty service job.
Yeah, shitty service job that you bounce between your entire life.
Yeah.
It just hit me that Jeevan's brother was an author too.
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So Gasperry lives on Moon Colony 2, which is like the shitty version of... Well, they grow up on Moon Colony 2, which is like the shitty version of the 2 moon colonies. The sky is like broken, like the lighting system. So they instead just have to deal with like the actual light, which is 2 weeks of nighttime and 2 weeks of daytime. Thus, the colony garnered the name Night City.
Yeah, wake the fuck up, samurai.
Wake the
We
fuck
got
up,
a city to
samurai.
burn.
It's so great.
What a sentence, by the way. The sky is broken. That's...
It's
You
great.
put that in a book, I'd remember that. That was great.
It's so evocative. And I love this little piece of imagery where this is on what page is this? 103, I think. The first moon colony was built on the silent flatlands of the Sea of Tranquility, near where Apollo 11 astronauts had landed in a long ago century. This is the bit I adore. Their flag was still there. In the distance, a fragile little statue on the windless surface. Come on. You kidding me? Kidding
That
me,
is
Emily?
cool. Yeah.
It's so cool. A little statue on the windless... Yeah, I was like, bro, she's cooking. But that's the name of the
But like,
book.
I thought things do erode on the moon. Like, I thought there was like wind and like, like, I don't know. Maybe not. Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know enough about space, dude.
No, that's a Doctor Who thing. If you're pulling in like lunar winds or something like that.
Yeah.
But no, I think all of the like quote unquote erosion is just from like little tiny like meteorites hitting the surface and quote unquote eroding that way, but not in the fashion that we might think of.
Yeah, 'cause there's no atmosphere. There's no... Like, oxygen is really what tends to erode things. And like wind.
But yeah, well, I just remembered the fact that like you actually can't be on the surface that long because the rubble is so sharp, or like dust is so sharp because it doesn't get eroded. So it actually cuts through the lining of your suits and stuff.
Okay, space is scary. Is what I'm. That's what I'm picking up. Some other fun
So
stuff.
not tranquil.
So untranquil. Should be called the Sea of. Oh no. Now this is really fun stuff. So Gasperry grew up on the same street that Olive Lewin lived on. We haven't been there in Olive's time, but this is presumably where her family is while she's on her book tour. And the family that live in there now, who are like shitty and suck, have a last name of Anderson, which I thought was very funny. And I was so tempted to message Eric and be like, yo, Emily St John Mandel thinks you guys are losers.
I brought the book and I meant to like bring it out when we were just visiting and show him that passage. And I just totally forgot about it. But yeah, I thought that too. And just to point out, all we see are the kids, and the kids aren't losers. They're doing the best with what they got.
Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. Very defensive. Yeah, it's Gasper. It's so funny. I read that and I went, yeah, can't not bring that up.
Yeah, I was cringing. I was like, oh, come on, Mandel. Any other name?
Why you gonna do me like that?
Unnecessary. Yeah, so Gasperry, the kind of, to summarize his little arc here, so he gets a job as a hotel detective, which is still the funniest job title of all time. I love Emily St. John Mandel. His friend Talia works in HR, or his childhood friend Talia works HR there. And his sister calls him to her office one night. I think it's on her 37th birthday, maybe, if I've written that down right. And she basically, she's like unraveling in a way that he doesn't quite seem to be able to understand. And she eventually explains these glitches that they've been tracking, these sort of like coincidences that all center around this beach on Caiette, and this seeming something that's happened in reality. So we've already said this, but just to like reinforce it. So it's the video that Vincent captured that was played during Paul's performance. It's the description in Mary and Bad by Olive Lewin based on something that actually happened to her. It's Edwin on the beach in 1912. And the piece that we get here is that Gasperry and Zoe, when they're reading through the book, Gasperry's initial thought is that the sound that you hear in Vincent's video and the description in the book itself is of like an airship terminal. That's the bit that they're able to connect that obviously doesn't exist in, back in Edwin's time, or indeed in Paul's time. And so then we get the, I don't want to talk about simulation theory yet, because that's something that we'll have to work through in a second. But I also just want to call out how well thought out and developed and excruciating Gasperry and Zoe's relationship is. She's clearly like wickedly intelligent, just so much smarter than he is. And there's this little passage that I thought was like really brilliant where he's just forgotten basically that she got promoted and he never congratulated her. And this is Gasperry thinking. He says, "She never dwelt on my lapses, and I couldn't entirely pass why this made me feel so awful. There's a low-level, specific pain in having to accept that putting up with you requires a certain generosity of spirit in your loved ones." And it's the having to accept that putting up with you requires a certain generosity of spirit in your loved ones is like, it's so, it's once again Mandel just putting her finger on some aspect of humanity that's so mundane and so true. I just wanted to call it out as
it's painfully relatable.
Big time. Where it's like, like you just think about all those things where you're like, yeah, people in my life just have to deal with that. And this just is something they've had to accept. Like, and yeah, you do kind of feel guilty sometimes about that.
like every now and again, you just want to like put an email blast out to everyone you know, be like, I'm sorry, just in general. thank you for supporting me and understanding.
Yeah. Like every time I'm in a slightly shitty mood and I'm just completely dismissive of people, I want to be like, sorry, I didn't mean it's just a bad day, all right? Everyone be chill. Yeah.
And it's really interesting to note that he's like feeling all self-conscious and everything about, because he's comparing himself to this young Einstein that's his sister, you know?
Yeah, big time.
And like the rest of humanity is him. You know, most of us are normal, and then we have to interact with the Davids, and we're like, oh, you make me feel terrible, but you're the odd one. It's you.
Why am I copying strays?
No, I completely agree, Doth. Completely agree.
How dare you? How dare you? I come onto this show in good faith, and this is the thanks I get. Yes, I love this relationship, and I especially love when she plays him Edwin's letter, where she shows him Edwin's letter, and he's like, "What language is this?" And she's like, "Really?"
Oh, I love that.
She's like,
Yes.
"Seriously?" He's like, "What?" And he looks, he's like, he knows he said something stupid, but he doesn't quite know why.
Well, at first I thought the language had just changed as well. Like, you know, 400 years before today, like it was Middle English. Like it was very different. Well, actually, maybe it may be a bit further past Middle English, but you know, it's an English that we wouldn't understand.
Yeah,
And
Scooby
so I thought
Toilet.
it was the same thing. Ah, yes, indeed.
Well, I mean, listen, I would understand it because I know how to read Shakespeare, so you guys speak for yourselves. Me and Eric will be fine. We'll be over here comprehending. Enjoy living in the future, you fucking Zoomers. Get off your phones, fellas. Yeah, the realization here is obviously the big thing that we should talk about at the end of this little section of coverage. So, Zoe very gently lets Gasperry come to this conclusion himself, but they're at his, I think they're at her apartment at this point, or in her office, I can't remember which, and the sentence that he sort of, that she says out loud is, if moments from different centuries are bleeding into one another, then, well, one way you could think of those moments, Gasperry, is you could think of them as corrupted files. Gasperry, how is a moment the same as a file? She was very still. Just imagine that they are. And this I love as well. I tried. A series of corrupted files, a series of corrupted moments, a series of discrete things bleeding into one another when they shouldn't. This is Gasperry again. But if moments are files, I couldn't finish the sentence. The room we were in seemed much less real than it had only a moment ago. The desk is real, I told myself. The wilted flowers on the desk are real. The blue paint on the walls. Zoe's hair. My hands, the carpet. And then he goes, but we're talking about Mum's thing, aren't we? The simulation thing. She says, look, I know it's circumstantial. I'm not crazy. It's just a series of descriptions of some kind of bizarre experience. But the coincidence, Gasperry, the way these moments seem to bleed into one another, I can't help but see it as some kind of evidence. So, simulation theory. What do you guys know about? Talk to me.
I like how the moment Gasperry hears simulation theory, he's like,
Bro.
you know, like, is anything real? like
It's
like
so
straight
funny.
like Rick and Morty.
And one of the things I really like about Ephraim is, you know, it's a bit later where he's Gasperry is sort of shouldering his way into this job, and Ephraim like remarks on like that time travel works too well, and that like it time seems to heal itself far too well, and like there should be way more consequences to time travel that they just don't see, and that's one of the pieces of evidence that suggests that that simulation theory is real. The simulation hypothesis is real. which is like, I've never seen that in sci-fi before. I thought that was a really interesting take on how to digest the concept of time travel. So what do you guys, at this interval, where we leave Gasperry, he's about to go into the training, what do you guys think of this simulation hypothesis? Do you think this is where it's going? Is this a red herring? Yeah, what do you think of this concept, I guess? Because it is a swing and a half, this whole notion that's introduced here.
You go, Darth. I'm sort of thinking.
I was gonna say, but I'm okay. I thought it was stupid. I hated it.
Say more?
Okay, so they find evidence that time travel exists. So the person from, the 1900s sees something, hears something from the future. The people in the 2000s hear something from the future, and these people who can now time travel are like, we have witnessed evidence of people experiencing these time dilations, and we think it's simulation theory. We're not going to pin it on time travel related things, even though we know that exists. I don't get why they have this jump from very obviously time travel related phenomenon to all of existence is fake. Like, this feels like it is so forced by the author because that's what the book is about, and not actually what the story is saying, if that makes any sense.
I sort of have a similar thing where it feels like this is a book in a book. Like it feels like I don't know, there's just like an extra level of like fiction writing going on here, that's meant to make it like slightly like not well thought out. Because yeah, like as you say, like if why are they questioning this if time travel exists? The people who made time travel, supposedly they know how it works and they have it all documented. That whatever processes and whatever stuff happens when you do time travel, can't you just like make hypotheses and investigations of and explanations as to that anomaly based on what you know about time travel? Like, did the right atoms rub together during those moments or something? Like, like I don't know. It's kind of, yeah, it is interesting how they go straight to like, it's like, oh, is this a simulation? Like, is this a glitch in the Matrix?
Plus, if it's,
I mean, it could be a glitch in the fabric of reality, sure.
yeah, but
like,
it's still a time related glitch. Is
yeah.
my problem? Like, if this was a completely unrelated scientific event, like unrelated to time, like it was, the crack in Doctor Who. It was something that was a phenomenon that was completely, as far as they could tell, unrelated to time travel. Then this would make sense for them to assume it's something unrelated to time travel. But the fact that all of their explanations and all of the examples that they have found is people seeing into the future and hearing into the future, and for them to be like, oh, this isn't time travel. It the more I talk about it, the angrier I get. I'm like, okay, I gotta finish the book. That'll be my tonight, so then I can know if I'm supposed to keep ranting about this or not.
Yes. I think that you also have to keep in mind that the simulation hypothesis was their mother's pet thing. That was like the thing that she studied at the universities and at, the Burgeoning Time Institute. And so I think it's also partly Zoe sort of trying to cope with her mother's passing by continuing this work as well. And so I think you also have to keep in mind that the subjectivity of the character proposing this, she's not really in her right mind, right? Gasperry reflects on the fact that like she looks tired, she's working too much, she's drinking too much. I also think there's an element of like it's about the person as well and their willingness to go along with this particular theory in this particular moment. And even Ephraim, he seems not as bought in as Zoe does. I don't know.
We don't have enough information at this point to know that all of this is not. I interpreted all of this to be the thesis statement of the time police. Like, this was the prevailing theory by hundreds of scientists who are, the leaders in this field. There's nothing in there that really says that. So now I'm second guessing and thinking like, oh, this could be like one crazy person who's pitching this to her brother. But that's not at all how I read it. Like, I read it as like the entire time police are investigating what they believe to be simulation theory. So me coming at it from that perspective is one reason that I was like so aggressively like, how are all the smartest people arriving at the same conclusion?
Right. Yeah, I guess we just don't have a view of like what the institution's perspective on this issue is. Yeah, I'm sure we'll find out. But I also do think that it I think the other thing that you have to bring to bear on this too is that like if these people who know all about time travel and have studied time travel and understand the laws around time travel, if they look at this problem and they've ruled out time travel as the culprit, that probably suggests that time travel couldn't have done this. Or at least the way that they understand time travel.
I don't know. There's also a lot of questions that don't make sense yet. Like, no one has been able to go back and directly observe the phenomenon themselves.
Yeah.
Which they would have had enough information to know exactly when to interview Edwin. So therefore they would have enough to go and do all of the testing themselves. But they have been unable to for whatever reason. So, yeah. Lots of annoying questions that hopefully will be answered in the next couple hours for me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, I think part of it too that you get is that no one wants to time travel because it's so dangerous. And the odds of being burned by the Time Institute are so high that like and obviously it's illegal to do without, being part of the Time Institute. And you get that little aside where, he's like, there are like 170 prisoners on like the prison on the moon, and they're all serving life sentences for illegal time travel and things like that. So I think there's also an element of like, they haven't gone and done this because no one's stupid enough to want to go and do this investigation, except for Gasperry. So I don't know. I think that there's a lot of ways you can read this that would make it work. But as you say, Darth, like it really will be something that the book either will work for you and you'll come away being like, oh, that was like a really interesting way to do that, or you'll come away being like, this was trying too hard to be a book about books, which is like kind of what Pat was saying.
If I was in this world, I would have stolen that technology and then traveled back in time, and then I would have gotten caught by the time police and locked up. That would have been my story.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay, the last.
I had
You go.
I had a couple like previous notes to this.
Mhm.
And they were both really just quotes. But on page 114, when this was when Gasperry was meeting the woman again. They gave him a job at the last name Anderson. They gave him a job.
Talia.
And he asked, and yeah, Talia, and then not Talia was her full name. But he asked her if she ever like went back, and she said never. And then the first sentence of the next chapter was never to the Night City.
Mm-hmm.
And like, I want to get that tattooed. Like, I don't know why that hits. It hits so hard for me. I adore that sentence. Never to the Night City.
It's good.
And then the other quote that just hit real hard was page 121, which was something along the lines of, "Pandemics don't arrive like war; they arrive in retrospect." Meaning you can't identify them as they're happening. And I think this was related to Olive people kept asking her about if anyone was paying attention to what the Australians were pumping out that was going to take over the world, and she kept kind of ignoring it, and you don't know that pandemic is there until years later, and you could look back on it and say, this is the point when it took over the world. It's a lot more obvious when it's a war and the bombs are dropping and stuff. I thought that was really, really poignant as well.
Yeah, and there's in the section that's like the excerpt from Marion Bad, there's that repeated phrase of like, we knew it was coming. We knew it was coming and we prepared accordingly. Or at least that's what we told our children and ourselves in the decades that followed. We knew it was coming, but we didn't quite believe it. So we prepared in low-key, unobtrusive ways. Because of that ancient horror, too embarrassingly irrational to be articulated aloud. If you say the name of the thing you fear, might you attract that thing's attention? This is difficult to admit, but in those early weeks we were vague about our fears because saying the word pandemic might bend the pandemic toward us. Are you fucking kidding?
This sounds like something that should be in Station 11.
This type of shit is all over Station 11. Yeah, you guys should read that book.
Yeah.
It's really good.
Yeah, I was thinking earlier I probably will read it.
Yeah, it's a much pacier read than Glass Hotel.
It was really interesting on my second read through of this first section, of like the warnings that she kept getting on the book tour, and I'm like, part of me is like, if you could like feel the universe calling out to you that like you need to make this decision, you need to do this, and it was like, if that many people are asking you, have you heard about this virus, might want to pay attention.
It's pretty full on. Then it's like all of these little clues start popping up as well. Like you said, like the guy with it's like she's like talking to someone and they're like a hollow person, like a hologram, and they keep pausing because they're pressing the cough button and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I like it a lot. It's good stuff.
Yeah. And the one thing I don't think we actually talked about is the title was The Last Book Tour on Earth, but that was in the year 2203, and then the other chapter takes place 200 years after that, so the Earth is still there. But does that mean that the pandemic wiped out all of the book tours?
We actually don't know that for sure, because our story takes place on the moon colonies.
Oh.
That's what I would say.
Solid.
What, M22?
Yeah.
The 2400 one.
2400. Gasperry's time. There's not even a single mention of Earth. It's the two moon colonies and the far colonies. So maybe the pandemic does destroy the world. Like, we just don't know. Let's, it's something. It's something to think about.
Structurally, also, the chapter namings were very interesting. That it goes from The Last Book Tour on Earth to Bad Chickens. So Last Book Tour on Earth 2203, Bad Chickens is 2401, and then it goes back to Last Book Tour on Earth 2203. And I don't know if that's ever been done in a book that I've read before, where as you progress through the chapters, you're rereading the same titled chapter again.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, this is a real Emily St John Mandel trick. She does this a bunch in, I think it's The Singer's Gun with the chapter titles. Yeah, she loves to sort of use the same things in different ways. It reminds me a lot of oh my god, why am I blanking his name? Like William Gibson, and the way that he sort of uses chapter titles and things like that to trick you into thinking it's one thing, but it's actually something else. Yeah, I think it's a really interesting structural mechanism that unfortunately requires you to pay attention to those title pages, which apparently is a tall order for you guys.
It is.
I will just give you a little snippet from Station 11, just so that you have an idea of what we're talking about when I say like that this book is full of stuff like this. I think this is Kirsten, adult Kirsten, reflecting on like the world that was. Quote, you walk into a room and flip a switch and the room fills with light. You leave your garbage and bags on the curbside, and a truck comes and transports it to some invisible place. When you're in danger, you call for the police. Hot water pours from faucets. Lift a receiver or press a button on a telephone, and you can speak to anyone. All the information in the world is on the internet, and the internet is all around you, drifting through the air like pollen on a summer breeze. There is money, slips of paper that can be traded for anything. Houses, boats, perfect teeth. There are dentists. She tried to imagine this life playing out somewhere at the present moment. Some parallel Kirsten in an air-conditioned room, waking from an unsettling dream of walking through an empty landscape. Yeah, it's full of stuff like that. Just these like, and I also wonder if those types of passages are where the idea for this book comes from, of like these characters imagining these parallel lives, and these different.
Yeah, there's a lot of like fantasizing going on.
Yeah.
Which kind of makes me think that makes me question the not fairy tale, but like this more storytelling quality of the future segments, and if that's actually like going on.
Okay. Yeah. Well, I mean, hey, I think that might be the show. Do you guys have any closing thoughts, or are we happy to leave our boy Gasperry about to join the Time Institute?
And we're recording part 2 tomorrow, right?
You wish. You wish.
Always making me wait.
I know. It's the method. You got to think about it. Otherwise, you'd come into every recording session and be mad the whole time. Yeah. So next time we're reading through to the end of Sea of Tranquility. This is a book that, like, I think if you have the time, you should try and read a second time. Like, if you're reading along, I think it's like that kind of a book. It's very short as well. It's not a very long novel. Even though that hardback that Darth has looks massive, I'm guessing the font is quite large.
Yeah, I was shocked at how quickly I had made it through our point, and I still had another like 30 minutes of the car ride to just sit there and mull over everything. So
yeah,
it was a quick read.
Cool. I think let's leave it there. Darth, any pluggables? This will come out in about 2 weeks, if that makes a difference.
No, I've got several shorter ideas that I'm working on, and I've forgotten what all of them are. One of them is on the wasted potential of Padme's handmaidens in the Phantom Menace, which is fantastic. They're all apparently like ninja assassins, and you don't get any of that in the actual movie. So
okay, that's cool. I read that novel. That sounds cool.
Yesterday I was obsessing over this video. It's some AI slop, but it's like Anakin. It's the scene where Anakin is like, "We do not grant you the rank of master," and then he starts rapping at Mace Windu, and then Mace Windu starts rapping at him back, and then Obi-Wan Kenobi starts rapping, and it was awesome.
Jesus Christ. Culture's over. Pat, what do you got to plug? Where can people find you on the internet?
We have a podcast called A Method to the Madness. We're on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, and Apple Podcasts. We have a website, amttm.com. We have all our episodes and socials from there.
Links to all of that in the show notes. If you'd like to support us, you can head to patreon.com/zeroindent. Supporting us at the $5 tier unlocks the bonus episodes of this very show, where we watch and talk about supplementary materials. By the time this goes out, the next thing in the Patreon bonus feed will be a tier list of everything that I watched, read, and played this year. It's going to take us a minute to get through because I've done a lot. Free Patreon subscribers gain access to the Zero Indent Patreon chat, where you can send us questions and ideas for future episodes directly, or you can just DM me on Patreon. Any support you give us helps us keep making thoughtful, independent media criticism, an important practice to preserve in an age where context is defined by algorithms. We appreciate all of our Patreon subscribers. Help us continue to make the shows and articles that shape Zero Indent. Next time, we read through the end of Sea of Tranquility, and maybe, possibly, you guys like it, or maybe you come away being like, this is the worst series of novels. I hate it. I'm interested to find out. We'll catch you guys then. Thanks as always, wherever you watch this, if you made it this far, give us a like, a comment, and tell someone about the show. It's how we grow the podcast. And as always, it's just the end of the show. It's not the end of the world. Zero Indent is an independent publication dedicated to studying works of genre fiction, brought to you by our subscribers. Head to patreon.com/zeroindent to learn more and consider supporting us. Our theme song is The Swan by Alon Peretz. Our podcast cover art is by Crystal Hatay. Everything else is written, directed, and edited by me, DC McNeil. You can find our merch and books at underink.press and everything we do at zeroindent.com.